just give them I'm just trying to catch their eye.
John.
Okay, mics are on now.
Is it on? Good morning everyone and welcome to the Community Transparency and Engagement Committee meeting of Tuesday the 15th of October 2024. Before we start, in terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please follow the directions of the staff and exit the building and meet on 3rd Avenue. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. Members, could you please remember to speak clearly to your microphones, only one speaker at a time, please. No councillor Crowther today, so that might be... And also, everyone, please turn off your mobile phones. If I could just start with opening karakia from Councillor Baker.
Mauri ore te whare. Mihana kia koutou katoa i raroi ngā ahuatanga o te wā. Koutou ngā tangata o tō tātou nei hapori. Nau mai ki roto i tēnei o ngā whare. Mihana kia koutou. Kua tā mai nei ki te whāriki hia o kōrero i tēnei ata. Ko te manako, ma te tika, te pono me te aroha, e arahi pai ai tātou katoa i tēnei rā. So just quickly, good morning everybody, and a massive welcome to the members of our community who have come in, and those that are submitting petitions today, and just a kind message to us all that, respect and dignity, the values that guide our conversations today. And then with that, I'll open us up with a karakia. Nō reira, me noi tātou. Taua ki rā te moana nei e paripari kawana ki te ako tangata, ka ke ngā waka ka mauri te tohu ki te arearenga o mauao, he pauherenga mou, he pauhononga mou, kia herea ki te tika, kia herea ki te pono. Kia mau, kia ita, kia au, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Just call for any apologies. Yes, I have. So we have Mayor Mahi Drysdale, who has a conflict today, and also that apologies for Councillor Makaire Sydney, who's been granted leave of absence. Be received and seconded. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the apologies? So Councillor Hautapu Baker and Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. All those against? Carried. Public forum items? No, there's no public forum items. Acceptance of any late items, item 4? None? No confidential business to be transferred into the open? There is none. Item 6, change to the order of business. Any requests for changes to the order of business today? No. Item number 7, confirmation of minutes. Just straight up.
Just ask if there's some corrections.
Can I ask if there's any corrections to the minutes? None. Can I call for a mover and a seconder, please?
Happy to move.
Moved Councillor Kurak and seconded Councillor Rod Taylor. Recommendation that the minutes of the Community Transparency and Engagement Committee meeting held on the 10th of September 2024 be confirmed as true and correct record. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Item number 8, just call for any declarations of conflict. Councillor Taylor.
Chair, yes, I declare a conflict in item 10.3, which is about the alcohol licensing fees. As a current holder of 2 licences, I don't think I should be involved in the discussion and will withdraw from the room for that item.
Good.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Noted. We now move to item number 9, deputations, presentations and petitions. And I would like to call up first Julie Carl to present a petition. Sorry? And Jim, sorry, apologies. Julie and Jim. Petition regarding the Mount Hot Pools. Thank you. Welcome.
Do we need to press the button? Oh. Oh.
I think it's this one.
No. Oh. Right. Thank you for the opportunity to come to a public meeting and address the staff members and democratically elected councillors to bring our concerns about the opening times of the Mount Hot Pools. My immediate family have been residents and ratepayers at Mount North constantly since the 1950s. Jim and I have 3 Mount North properties that we pay rates on and have had those since the 1980s. But we come today to represent walkers, swimmers and aquaclass members at the Mount Hot Pools. The Mount Hot Pools is a unique, essential rehab and health and wellness public facility. This is evidenced by the queue of people every morning before 7 o'clock waiting to get in. As far as I remember, the opening times have been from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. However, after COVID, these were changed from 6 to 10 to 7 to 9 by January 2022. And then 2 months later, it was changed again from 7 to 9 to 7 to 10, possibly because there was an outrage at these valuable, essential, unique hot pools being closed for 2 hours. I researched 43 public pools around the country, all but open at either 5:30 or 6 a.m, none as late as 7. I talked to swimmers, walkers, aqua members, and other local people about the opening times and received 127 signatures in support of bringing this to council. We believe that the Mount Hot Pools are not meeting our community needs. It's excluding the working people that used to go at 6 o'clock before work. They can no longer go with the traffic. This is a potential loss of income for the Mount Hot Pools. It also restricts access. Jilly is 5'3", 160 centimetres. She's asthmatic, about to have her 5th joint replacement. She can't exercise indoors. She needs a level, warm pool. The surgeons have recommended that she goes to the Mount Hot Pools, or she may face a further 2 surgeries on her feet. She works, she comes across from town, waiting at 7 a.m, or before 7, but she's restricted as to how much time she can use the pools before having to get back, fight the traffic and get to work. She's one of many stories in the people that signed the petition. It's also caused disharmony between the walkers, the swimmers and the aquaclass members. The walkers and swimmers used to have until 7:30 before the aqua classes started, so that was an hour and a half. This was pushed back to 30 minutes, so they complained. So the aqua class people were pushed out to 7:45, but that caused problems with people getting to work. People have complained. They've complained to management, they've complained to council, both verbally and in writing, but to no avail. Other public pools in Tauranga open at 6 o'clock. Cafes and gyms open by 6. So there shouldn't be a staffing problem after COVID. Staff at the pools also rotate, so they're used to starting at 6 o'clock. Some people were told that the Mount Hot Pools is a spa and not a swimming pool, and that if they want to swim, they should go down to the Bay Wave. But the website, the Mount Hot Pools website, says it's for swimmers, bathers, walkers. The webpage for the Community Transparency and Engagement states success now is an inclusive city, which looks like our city is accessible, enables healthy living and recreation to support improved well-being. We don't feel that this is a successful policy. Thank you for listening.
May I? Thank you. My name is Jim Carl, husband of Julie. I am a retiree. I'm in my third year after retiring at 70. I'm an example of the sort of people that are maybe having difficulty with access to the hot pools. I lead a very active life. Although retired, we still maintain family businesses, commercial and residential property, as well as a dairy farm. We try and maintain voluntary work in other aspects of our lives, and are members of different committees that are supporting forestry development in New Zealand, forest policy development, fire management, etc. In other words, our days are very, very full. I, unfortunately, at my age, beginning to have my form falling apart. So joints are requiring surgery, and I've had 4 quite serious surgeries. The Mount Pools was recommended by the specialist orthopaedic surgeon for recovery of knee, vertebrae and shoulder. And I originally was able to go there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I could have access to the pool without congestion, because there was a sort of a half of the pool was for swimmers and the other half was for walkers. But now we have a situation where the classes for aqua, or aqua classes, or aqua aerobics classes, are taking up the majority of the pool, and only 1, maybe 2 lanes available for swimmers, walkers and recreational users, which makes trying to exercise pretty difficult. Now you could say, well, go to another pool, but those are the very uniquely different hot pools where they have particular health benefits. Julie has already outlined that now it is opening at 7, and one of the things that has been said has been that there is a lack of availability of staff to start at 6. Now, local gyms, as Julie said, local clubs, local cafes are able to get staff at 6 in the morning, so that doesn't sound like a particularly good argument. Another point is that I would imagine that as owners of the hot pools, that there is a very large capital investment and also quite a high cost of maintenance of the infrastructure there. And one would think that having greater use, and with certainly a demand earlier in the morning, that the hot pools could benefit from more use of the pools, and also encouraging more participation there. I just wish to endorse the recommendation that Julie has made, and that the Mount Hot Pools resume opening at 6 a.m. to allow greater access and use for all, not just some of the individuals who currently have access. Thank you.
Any questions of staff? No. Petitioner, sorry.
You can ask them questions too.
It's all very clear.
Yeah.
Certainly understand.
Sorry, I don't want to just ask a question for the sake of asking a question, and well done, thank you. I know it's very difficult to come and talk at these events. In the morning, when you do get there, you said there was a bit of a queue. Any idea on numbers that you're sort of looking at every day?
This morning it was quite chilly,
Hold on.
so I took a photo. Oh, it's probably 10, 12, but in the pool, once you get 20, it's quite packed.
Yeah.
The information on how I got from the Times, I went to a website called the Wayback Machine and got the screen captures of the Mount Hot pools over time and can see when they changed.
Councillor Baker.
Kia ora. Well, thank you both for submitting your petition and taking the time to be able to get to bring that to us. My question is actually for council staff. Kind of what's our decision-making history on this matter, and how hard would it be to open up an hour earlier?
Through the chair, Bay Venues run Mount Hopple on behalf of the council, so that's a decision that they need to make. So as
now the petitions is tabled, we can have that conversation with them, and they'll come back with some
sound reasoning for why they do what they currently do, and I assume there'll be some costs associated with the want to open earlier, and that'll be a decision for council in terms of if that's something they want to direct Bay Venues to have to do. But that's not council staff, Bay Venues.
Bay Venues. Supplementary question, can we get a time frame on a meeting with Bay Venues on this?
We can do it this week.
Cool.
Any further questions? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I acknowledge Tina Harris-Ridanui, who's one of the GMs at Bay Venues. Just wonder if it's appropriate to ask Tina a question, if I may. Tina, when was the last time that the executive or the board looked at the opening hours of Mount Hot pools?
No, so the last time we looked at it was back in COVID times.
Okay.
That's correct. And just to confirm that the decision was to keep it at 7 a.m. opening, because we found that of the 12 people that regularly came at 6 o'clock, they moved to 7 o'clock, and so now we get on average about 24 people that come between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. and the aqua aerobic classes, they start at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Yes, you can, sure.
So there's two sets of aqua classes. There's aqua resist and aqua aerobics. The aqua aerobics classes start at 9, but the aqua resist class start at 7:45, 3 days a week.
Don't want to be left out, do you, Councillor Curran?
So could this committee make a recommendation to EVL to seriously consider extending the opening hours to an hour earlier? That would be helpful in terms of getting some direction from elected members. Would that be appropriate?
I think we're best to report back with the facts, and then have a debate about whether or not, and then out of that discussion then provide clear direction to Bay Venues in terms of your desire. Ultimately we delegate the ability to run that business to Bay Venues and the Bay Venues board. So I think I'd like the opportunity to get the right people in a room and bring back a paper or some information to you, so then you can consider the petition that you've got on the table, all of the information from Bay Venues in terms of how they currently run the facilities and the implications of changing it by an hour, and then whether it's this meeting or a full council meeting, whatever suits for you guys, and then have that debate and provide staff direction.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Morris.
I'm usually softly spoken, but the microphone's not working.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yours,
You can hear
is
me
mine
coming out
working?
of your one.
It's not
Yeah, I can
on
hear
this
you.
side.
I was not working on this side. That's right.
We
Oh, I
can
like to
hear-
hear
we can hear
myself
you,
coming back. Just a question for Mr. Wallace. Yeah, it's probably a Tauranga City Council. We used to have back in the day a policy around community/commercial and a mix, whether there was going to be a subsidy or whether, for example, Mount Hotpools was going to cross-subsidise the others. Do we still have a mechanism, a community good mechanism that we have discussions with Bay Venues with?
Through the chair, we do have the revenue and financing policy conversation, which
Has that
which has the allocation of costs between public, private good, etc. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We can also make sure that's in the paper that we bring back.
Nice.
Thank you. And so, finally, one last.
Sorry,
Yes.
just one last. I mean, on the placard at the pools, it says it's unique in the Southern Hemisphere. Of all the pools to cut, that's such a shame.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, so no further questions? Thank you. And thank you both very much. Just on that, I'd just like to read the recommendations that the Community Transparency and Engagement Committee receives the report Petition Mount Maunganui Hot Pools opening hours, and B, request staff bring back a report on the petition to consider extending the opening hours of the Mount Maunganui Hot Pools. May I have a move and a...
Is that the recommendation? That's not the recommendation, it's written.
No, I have just added that based
okay.
on what I've heard.
Okay.
Is that slightly informal, but
Yep.
are we happy with?
I can
Yes.
help you with the wording of that, if you like, if you want to read it out. Oh, hi, Coral.
Would you like me to reread it?
I'd love you to reread it, sir.
Okay, so that the Community Transparency and Engagement Committee, A, receives the report Petition Mount Maunganui Hot Pools opening hours, and B, requests staff bring back a report on the petition to consider extending the opening hours of the Mount Maunganui Hot Pools. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Baker. Mover can speak to the motion if he wants. No, nothing more to say. Does the seconder wish to speak or reserve the right? Open the motion for discussion and debate. And there is Councillor Kura first, and then followed by Councillor Morris.
Yeah, no, I think it's logical to revert back to the pre-COVID opening times and bring us into line with all the other complexes around the country. So, thank you.
Far be it from me to offer commercial direction to Bay Venues, but what a good problem to have. Folks lined up in the morning to frequent your business. Man, it'd be pretty good. Wouldn't it?
Excellent.
It'd be
Yeah,
pretty
I
good. No, looking forward to the paper, and of course, but this is going to Bay Venues for their consideration, and our team will report back to us with some options. So thank you.
Right, good. Right, yeah, debate is finished. So, yeah, all those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Now move to a tabled item, petition on the Rainbow Crossing, and I would now ask Wayne Farrant to come to the front and speak to his petition, please. Welcome, Wayne.
Okay. First of all, just the
Push the button.
microphones aren't coming through over there through the speakers.
Thank you.
Yep.
Push the button.
What's that? That one?
Yep.
Okay, first of all, morning Tauranga City Councillors and committee representatives. My name's Wayne Farrant. Thank you for the opportunity to present this petition against the proposed installation of a rainbow crossing in downtown Tauranga. As a resident and ratepayer of Tauranga, I'm deeply concerned about the allocation of the city funds towards projects that might not directly benefit the community's essential needs. I also feel that the community as a whole wasn't made aware that this was on the table. The first I heard of it was when I saw the Sun Live article saying that it had already been approved. I would like to see proof of the consultation that was done, because in the agenda it appears that there was none. The proposed rainbow crossing, while symbolic, represents a significant expense which in my view could be better directed towards infrastructure, healthcare or other community services that have a more tangible impact on the daily lives of Tauranga residents. The petition has already garnered significant interest from the community in just a few weeks, and that's hardly even pushing it. I just sort of put it out there. I haven't walked around, I haven't done face-to-face with anybody. It's just putting it out there for consideration. Sorry, where are we? Lost my place.
That's good, you got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Don't rush ya.
Right, so this reflects the shared sentiment, obviously, that our city's resources should prioritise solutions for more practical issues affecting our daily lives, such as traffic management, public safety, helping those less fortunate in the community, or even junior sports equipment. I understand and respect the symbolism behind such a gesture towards diversity and inclusion. However, it's crucial to weigh this against the broader needs of the community, especially in times where fiscal responsibility is paramount. People are struggling to feed their families at the moment. Our rates have increased and we're facing higher daily living costs. The cost of installation and maintenance of such a feature, estimated around $10,000 annually, could address more pressing infrastructure or community development projects. This also doesn't take into account any vandalism costs related to such a highly political symbolism. People have already even threatened to do burnouts on it in some comment section so it's just divisive. It just feels it's an unnecessary addition to the downtown area that is already in a pretty bad way. You just have to look at the comment section in the Sun Live article that was first published to see that you've got this decision wrong. This petition does not aim to undermine the values of diversity and inclusion, but to highlight the importance of resource allocation in our city's budget. Diversity should be celebrated in ways that do not necessitate substantial public expenditure or alter our city's infrastructure in a manner that could be seen as divisive or unnecessary by a large portion of the community. I fear this will have the opposite effect that you are hoping for, and in fact will divide the community. The advocate for the crossing is already calling out my right to freedom of expression and democracy. I quote the Sun Live article where Lockhart said it was horrifying that the petition was going to be presented and believed there was no grounds to do so. The advocate is looking for inclusiveness, provided the advocate gets to choose who is included. I kindly request that you reconsider the decision to proceed with this project. Our city is known for its beautiful landscapes, community spirit, and we should continue to focus on projects that enhance these aspects while addressing the real needs of our residents. Thank you again for letting me speak and present this petition.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Yes, well, we were happy to have you here today too, so yeah, take that as our sentiment. So any questions of... oh, sorry. Any questions of petitioner? Councillor Kurak.
Thank you, Wayne. So your key concern is around the allocation of resource, the cost of this crossing.
Yep.
Which I understand to be, can I actually ask staff, what is that, the cost, just clarify? I think we were given an indicative 10k per year operational, but has that been reconsidered in terms of how accurate that was? Because it does seem quite a bit, considering the 10k would actually put it in place to construct that crossing.
Through the chair, the latest figures in terms of installation, and we don't actually have formal quotes yet, they're just estimates, is $10,500. So $5,000 for the rainbow part of it, $1,000 for the white stripes, and then $4,500 for traffic management. So $10,500 for installation. Then, if the decision is made at some point in the future to continue to maintain the rainbow crossing, the early estimate was $10,000. Again, paint approximately 5 and traffic management approximately 5, but at this stage that was a very high level estimate, and you know we could make the decision to paint it and let it go. You know, the decision to actually maintain it on an ongoing basis hasn't necessarily been made, but we put those figures in so you had an understanding of the consequential OPEX that might be needed if we put the crossing in.
So that, in terms of that sorry, Wayne, if I can just clarify what we're talking about here, get a bit of context. The CFO, if I can ask, in terms of the operational expenditure, the annual operational expenditure of $10,000 a year, how much would that be for the average annual cost for the average residential property?
On 56,000 residential ratepayers, it'll be approximately 12 cents a year.
So 12 cents per year.
Right.
So, okay, so if I put it in that context, Wayne, and I look at some of the other decisions that have been recently made, one significant one was the new library museum, that complex in the city centre, which CFO advised that would be $448 per average residential property. So we're talking about 12 cents versus 448. There's another decision coming up in December for us to continue with that project, and that's around this museum, etc. component of that. Would you also advocate against that as being, not essential infrastructure? What's your view in terms of where you'd like us to focus our expenditure?
I'd have to have a look into. Yeah, I don't understand what you're talking about there, but I can definitely, I'd like to have a look into it. But it's, I just think it's an expense. It's an unnecessary expense, and it's divisive. It's a political statement. It doesn't belong. I mean, if you want to paint the Mangatapu toilets have just been all painted all nicely as you come over the bridge there. They look awesome. Like, paint a toilet block, paint a wall, put a mural up, it doesn't need to go on the road. It's going to get driven over. It has to be repainted, and we've seen in other cities what happens. People are coming, painting them out. Guys are doing burnouts on the thing. There's a guy made a comment in here that it's going to be Tauranga's new burnout pad. Like, it's completely unnecessary. And the expense, the money can be spent elsewhere. Yes, it's okay, 12 cents per house. It's still $5,000. Like, ask some of the small sports teams, little schools that, $5,000 goes a long way towards sports equipment. Buy some new footy boots, buy cricket gear, okay, yes, it's only $5,000, but it's $5,000. That is not going to, in my opinion, is not going to do what you think it's going to do. We're being inclusive. I think it's going to be divisive.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Any further? So it's Councillor Morris.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. to council staff, if I may, around the 4.5k for traffic management. Of course, the old Minister of Transport is a bit hot on traffic management expenses at the moment. Do we do our own traffic management these days through city operations, or is that contracted out these days?
Thanks, Councillor, through you, Chair, is that not in its entirety. City operations, can you hear me? City operations is new in the setup. We are doing some traffic management, some of the low-level traffic management. We haven't got the big attenuated trucks as yet. So, and I'm not sure what scale of TMP that would require, but yeah, not in its entirety. But we will get there.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, supplementary, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah. So just on that, is the plan currently to fold some of those functions into Tauranga City Council so that we're not contracting out so much?
It's fairly hard to give a definitive answer. Depends what you think. Fundamentally, the process going forward is that project in-housing like that, we do an assessment of the cost and the benefit and whether or not we could do it in-house. So as contracts come up for renewal. So as I said, we are picking up some of the traffic management, but there's also quite a skill set in traffic management, and believe it or not, quite a lot of qualifications are required to become an STMS. So that is a slowly. So probably doesn't answer your question for this in particular, but at some point I would envisage, all going as we plan now, we would do that in-house. It just might be in a while.
Just through the chair, if the city ops team is able to deliver the traffic management services for the installation of those crossings, we would look to do that if it was going to be cheaper. So that'll be part of the exercise we're doing at the moment in terms of trying to define the final cost.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Taylor?
Wayne, just wondering if you can read out what the question was asked on your petition. We don't actually have that information in front of us. Is that something you can do for us?
It's just to halt the installation of the Tauranga crossing. So that was what it was on. It did have a spiel there saying that it was cost related. It was also consultation. It just feels that there was a lack of consultation with the wider community. So that's what was. It's basically a summary of what was written here that was put in there. So its main thing is cost and the consultation, and the possibility that it's going to be it's just a divisive. It's as much as we want to be inclusive, and I don't actually know what they're excluded from. Like what the LGBT community, what are they excluded from? What, can they go to a cafe in town? Yep. Can they go out to the pub and have a drink? Yep. Can they, they're not excluded from anything. So it's going to become divisive. That's the feedback I'm getting on it. So
Supplementary? Yes. So if I was shown what you just showed me then, it doesn't defer to cost, it doesn't defer to politics. It really is open-ended, isn't it? It isn't actually about cost when you sign up for that petition.
oh, it is. The petition is.
Just show us
Yeah, I sent a copy of. There's a online copy of the petition through there, and they asked me to print one out. It hasn't actually printed the second page of it, but the online petition has an article, like basically runs it through exactly what you are signing, and it's a shorter version of what I've read out to you.
Okay, it's unfortunate we haven't actually got that in front of us.
I can't. Well, yeah, you do have it. You all have access to it. I sent an email to every councillor, and it has a link on the email, one to the Sun Live article, so that you can want to go through there, read the comments. At the time, there were 32 comments on the Sun Live article. There were 3 in favour, and the rest of them were all dead against it. So you're welcome. Have a look. It just feels like we're not reading the room. It's but there is a link to the actual petition that you can open, and it now has 2,855 signatures on it.
Councillor Baker?
Through you, the Chair. Kia ora, Wayne. Firstly, I appreciate the time and effort that you've taken to garner the support for this particular petition. There's no hiding where I stand on the matter, but I do acknowledge your time and effort and the power that we sit in as councillors to make decisions. And I don't want to sit here knowing the level of influence that I have to discredit or argue against what you've done, because the effort and the busyness of everyone's lives is something worth commending. And just so you know that my position on the matter hasn't changed. I did have a chance to read it at some point. I was just trying to find the petition now, but I couldn't scroll it anywhere. I couldn't find it anywhere. I guess just for me, just so you're aware, if you haven't seen the recordings or comments that have been floating around that I've made around the matter, I'm of the opinion of someone who knows what it's like to be a part of a minority group, how inclusive and not divisive a statement and a sentiment like this will make. I'll probably be just repeating what I said the first time round on the matter, so I won't bore us with all of that detail. But yeah, to me, this is probably not going to change my opinion on the matter. But I think this probably, more importantly, raises a much larger conversation, in that Tauranga, to be totally honest, sucks at having honest conversations. We don't provide enough space and opportunity to come together as people to actually debate and discuss. We tend to hide behind fake profiles on social media, and having scrolled through some of the material that's been shared online, there are a fair few fake profiles going hard and trolling both petitions that were going around themselves. So I think that Tauranga City Council, can do a lot better job moving forward at actually going beyond a bit just consulting, but let's provide space for debate within our communities in a safe way, so that way we're not hiding within our dark corners in our communities or behind fake pages, but we can engage in robust discussion and then still go out and have a coffee or a cup of tea or whatever later on, regardless of our difference of opinion. And I think that that's where Tauranga can grow to moving forward, because no doubt other local or political issues, we've had one yesterday, will continue to come our way, the way, and will cause a stir within our community, within Tauranga. But let's facilitate better, honest, transparent discussions, and be able to walk away from those tables still being able to have a cup of tea with the person standing alongside, across from you. So with respect to you and the decision, it's not going to change my position on the matter, but I genuinely appreciate the effort that you've put in, and that hope that we can, should there be other topics that come to mind that you or community members that you speak to have issue with, that we can come and have that debate early, and ideally reach consensus or compromise on some matter. But thank you very much for your time. That's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Baker. Can we need to take the petition off you too. Thanks, Wayne. Thank you very much for coming in today. So we formally receive your petition as tabled, and we will have some discussion on it now, but we'll come back to you in due course. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the recommendation before us is that the Community Transparency and Engagement Committee receives the petition Rainbow Crossing. Actually, I should refer to this more correctly. The recommendation that the Community Transparency and Engagement Committee receives the petition halt the installation of a rainbow crossing in Tauranga's CBD. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved Councillor Baker and seconded Councillor Morris. I know you've had a few good words. You don't want to speak to the motion? Seconder?
No, all good. Thank
You're
you.
good?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Open up for discussion. Any discussion? If there is none, I will Put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
To receive, the motion was just to receive the
Yes.
petition to halt.
Yes.
Sorry, I interpreted it as being and to halt.
No.
Yeah.
Do you want me to re-vote?
I know, I support that.
You're clear?
recommendation.
Thank you.
It's up and
Don't have
changed.
any uncertainty.
Right.
Okay, we're moving on to...
Sorry, Chair, can we just maybe get someone to check these microphones?
Yeah,
They're definitely not working.
They're not working, Daddy, I'm sorry.
You can't hear them at all, Murray?
When the speaker was talking, you know, when you came out, it was excellent for a time, is that correct?
Just a
And
Zoom
then it
quickly.
disappeared for some reason.
We could take a quick intermission and we'll just try and
Sure.
sort out the mics just for a couple of minutes, if we may.
Can we just say that it's been live, the people live streaming from here because we've got separate microphones, just make that point.
What was that say?
Live streaming has got separate microphones and people
Oh,
can
so
hear
the
at
live
home.
streaming can hear? Okay, it's just
It's just the
inside.
people in the room
Okay.
have trouble hearing.
Good, we'll just try and correct that technical difficulty.
I'm not sure, we might just need to keep going and we'll try.
We're able to hear here. Like,
You guys can hear?
we can hear, yeah.
Oh, good, okay, that's good. Okay, we'll carry on then. Sure. Thank you. We'll speak a bit louder, please, councillors, if we have to. Right, moving on to item number 10. 10.1, the Main Streets report and presentations for the period 1st of January to 30th of June, and I'll just ask Gareth Wallace, General Manager, to introduce the report.
Kia ora tātou. Just very quickly, you will remember at our last meeting on the 10th of September, this report was tabled. We were lucky enough to have our friends from Main Street in the room that day to present their 6 monthly report. For a variety of reasons, the 3 other Main Streets weren't available that day. We have managed to wrangle our other friends, and there'll be presentations today from Papamoa Unlimited, Tauranga, Main Street, and then Greerton Village and Community Association. So they'll talk through their 6 monthly reports and be available to answer any questions, as will staff if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we call up first. Papamoa, welcome.
Good morning, councillors, and welcome aboard to the Tauranga Council. It's great to have the level of engagement that we've seen so far. My name is Julia Mankdler, and I'm the Event and Marketing Manager for Papamoa Unlimited. And beside me is Leah Sutton, our chairperson. Who's controlling? Yeah, how do I can? Yeah, cool. We're quite a unique organisation, so today being the first meeting before you, I wanted to explain our charter and how we operate differently to the other town centres. In Papamoa we have a charter which is based off creating 3 or 4 community events that bring GDP into the Papamoa region for our community and our ratepayers alike. Our metric is followed by looking at increasing year on year our engagement with the participants that come through to those events. Can I please have next slide? Sorry, I'm not used to doing it. Yeah, cool. Next slide. Thank you. Cool, awesome. So we were established in 2014. It's our 10th year, which is really exciting for Papamoa. What it was created off originally is the boundary line of Domain Road, starting at the Surf Club and the Top 10 Holiday Park, coming down to all the businesses on Domain Road and Gravit, the Gravit Business Centre, so Papamoa Plaza, Fashion Island and the Pick and Save area as well. Some of the achievements that we've had over the past 10 years is that we managed to pivot all of our community events to run through COVID. So we created events that encouraged people to stay within their bubbles, get out, be healthy, active, inclusive, and it's very important to us that we've really held a strong point on having those events free for the community based upon the living cost crisis that we have had in the past few years. We have managed to, when I first took over the contract 6 years ago, it was 4 community backyard events. We've now changed that to 2 major events and 1 smaller event, which bring quite a lot of GDP into our area. Our future plans, we're very thankful to the commissioners for the last round of funding that they gave us to be able to step into strategic planning. We run on an oily rag, so we literally have no budget. So for us, it's managed to start moving from being reactive to proactive and starting to step into more of a position of growth. Together, we're looking at building the Gold Coast of New Zealand, because we have this beautiful progressive growth in the region, and we believe with the right backing and funding that we can help grow that. So that's kind of where we came from, where we've been and where we're going. Next slide, please. So just a touch point on collaboration has been quite an exciting part of the journey, especially the past 12 months for the 4 town centres. Last year we collaborated to bring a beautiful feature piece on stuff for Tantalising Tauranga, and that was a very exciting collab for all of us, especially for Greerton and us having smaller budgets. It's really exciting to put those smaller sort of pockets, well, we're sort of not really small anymore, but to be able to have that breadth of collaborating and being able to make that money go further for us all. So we did that, we did a publication, and we're really excited to see what we can do moving forward. We have quarterly catch-ups together, and I think that's been quite a great step forward for all the organisations. Next slide, please. So tato, together we are one. One of the most important pillars for me as a town centre manager is that cultural inclusivity. We've worked very hard over the past 3 years to build a beautiful relationship with Ngā Potiki Atama Pahore Trust. And so the event we'll be reporting on today in our 6 months is Papamoa Light Up the Waterway. So if you could move to the next slide. So that image behind me was an image that so to tell the story of Matariki in this year, we went out to the maraes and reconstructed cinematography to represent them. So there's actually an image that they're really greatly appreciative to have for their resources. We managed to make moving stars behind it, and we projected each of the maraes out to Mawau as they'd be positioned with the 3 whales around them. So as you can see behind me, that is the illuminated trail. Sort of one of those brainchilds that you have one day. We tried it the first year and 10,000 people turned up, so we saw there was a demand. In the second year we grew to 20,000, and we have estimations of around 40,000 for this year that has just been. We focused on telling the stories of the whenua, so we spoke to Timonga, Tohoroa, my brain's going out. Pardon? Take your time. Yeah, sorry. So we spoke to one of the stories that looks at the 3 whales through Kupu Kairoa, Mangatawa and Hikarangi. And so those are the 3 whales that made their way up from Mawau through the spring. We incorporated that into the storytelling by having made massive boards throughout the trail, putting the whales in and really trying to tell the story that was synonymous with our area. We had massive results with that. Local performers, kapahaka. So we're very proud of that. We grew our numbers substantially from the year prior. The unfortunate thing for us financially over the past 12 months is we had 3 major events fall into one financial year. So that's why our books look a little bit grimmer than usual, which means that we need to put a lot of work into fundraising. Next slide, please. Cool, and this is just some examples of some of the imagery that we had out there on the waterway as well. So you can see the massive crowd behind me really supporting the local tamariki in their kapahaka performances. We had Grant Hoa in Sonorous with 2 emerging bands, and obviously the beautiful light trail behind me. Next slide, please. All right, so we are the little poor sisters out the side. We have no budget. We haven't had very much budget for 10 years, though we are the fastest growing suburb in the Tauranga region. When this organisation was established, the population was 9,000. We now have a population of 36,600. So for us, it makes sense to extend the business ratepayer targeted boundary from where we currently sit to the end of Te Tumu, where we have our new retail section coming through. We also have little pockets of commercial in between, And for us in Papamoa, that rightfully represents our region. We don't identify ourselves as Gold Sands or East, it's Papamoa. So for us, that is our next goal, is that we want to extend that so we can have more revenue to put back into our destination, so that we can look at things like websites that will actually benefit the local businesses that are there, and the scope is infinite of what we are able to do should we have the correct funding to represent the destination. Next slide. A carry-on example of this being that our charter is very much different to everyone else. Community safety does come to us quite often, and we just don't have the revenue or the resource to be able to help that. For us, the safety concerns have been raised around the alleyways in our community. These have been presented to the police and council. Sort of things like rock throwing, which I know I've seen across multiple different platforms online, that this is not just in Papamoa, it's actually region-wide. Things like scooters and motorbikes using alleyways and smash windows. So we're getting these sorts of things flowing through, and there's not really much we can do about it but push it forward towards the council. So that is one of the things that Papamoa residents are asking for, is safety, a look into the safety area. And again, sorry, welcome Steve, we haven't met you yet. Next slide, please. And just, next up on the dot for us is the 8th of December is the official parade of the Tauranga City. We hold the Papamoa Santa Parade every year. It brings around 25,000 people to Papamoa. We have had 55 floats at its peak, which was about 1.2 kilometres long of floats. So we'll be trying to push that back into it. Cost of living, obviously a little bit of a factor there, but that's where we're landing next up. So if anyone wants to be Santa... Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. That's all we had to bring today. We just wanted to let you know who we are, how we got there, and where we'd like to go. Open any questions from councillors.
Yeah, I mean, before it was great to hear your story. I mean, you're running some big events there too, so really cool things you can add to the community. But open up some questions from councillors.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Julia and Lee.
Leah.
Thank you, Leah, for coming in today, and thank you for the Matariki event in particular, because people in the community were absolutely stoked with that huge foot traffic. And yes, there were some things around the outside, but that was an amazing event. So thanks for bringing that to Papamoa and making it a really vibrant place. In terms of Santa, when Santa went to the Welcome Bay Christmas parade, he had a little bit of trouble with the drawstring. So I think it's time to move on to a more experienced Santa, maybe. For Papamoa. In terms of Hautapu, Baker looks like he could be a really good Santa.
Puku?
Yes. Just got to work on the greyness in the beard. Question around, two questions, and I do endorse your statement around Papamoa being not just Gravatt Road. We are one community from down at Sandhurst all the way down to Papamoa East, so I definitely endorse that. The statement of equity in the financial report to 30th of June showed that you were in deficit, but council funding for the new year would have started 1st July. So would you mind telling me what's your current position 5 months into the financial year? Is that...
So we're not in deficit at the moment because obviously we get the funding twice yearly. But obviously for our last financial year we had Matariki fell twice just due to how the calendar works. If you looked at it for now, we're not in deficit, but yes, obviously you're looking at the financials for till the 30th of June.
And what are you doing to stay out of deficit for the coming financial year?
Very big push on funding. We do very well so when we started our brainchild of Matariki 3 years ago, we did not anticipate how well it would go. So it's kind of just chasing funding very hard. Now that we're working in collaboration with Ngāti Potiki, that's opened a few more doors for funding as well. A lot more.
So you've got a plan?
Yes.
And furthermore to what Lee was saying, every other year we've actually carried money through, so because we've had no budget, I've had to skin cats, use the terminology, but I've managed to carry it through every year, and then 3 fell in one, and we're like, whoa, this is a major event now. It just grew so astronomically so fast. So this year we only have 2 major events. Should we find that funding is a factor, then we will pull one.
Okay. So you're confident that last year financial year
That
was an
was,
anomaly?
yeah, we had, so for Matariki fell on the 14th of July and then it fell on the 28th of June, so just how it fell, twice.
I don't need that much stress twice a year.
Thank you. Supplementary through you, Mr. Chair, to the council staff. Probably going to do one of my famous issues and options resolutions, but are there any constraints from your perspective around Main Street areas? Of course, they've got to be geographical, but we've heard from Papamoa Unlimited and, of course, myself this morning that Papamoa is a large community, not a tight little area. Any constraints around that?
A conversation that Kendall's been involved quite a lot with over the last 6 to 12 months, so I'll hand over to Kendall.
Apologies, Councillor Morris. Can I just clarify exactly what you're asking?
Yeah, sure. So I recall when we set up the Main Street targeted rate for Papamoa, it was very tight around Gravatt Road, Domain Road, and the Papamoa Domain shops. And there was some rationale around that time that it was a clear community of interest. Papamoa Unlimited would argue that Papamoa is a community of interest. So are there any constraints around widening a targeted rate area for commercial businesses in Papamoa?
Yeah, I think you make a key point that they are funded by commercial ratepayers. So initially back in 2014, of course, that was, the commercial centre for Papamoa. Now there are extended areas of commercial developments out in that space. So there is the opportunity for Papamoa to go through that expansion process to engage with those commercial ratepayers to discuss if that's something that they would like to contribute to. I guess also there's an element too of community events that Papamoa is providing, and so there's also discussion around whether commercial ratepayers should be the only ones contributing to those events that are happening in the local community as well.
Councillor Curran.
Congratulations to you both around the success of the Matariki event. Just blowing people away. It's terrific. What do you put the last increase down to? Was there extra publicity or mainly word of mouth and social media, or how did you achieve that huge gain?
Why did we do it? So our rate has been 56,000 for 9 years, which is a tenth of Tauranga, downtown Tauranga. It's a quarter of the amount. And in the area that we've grown to, it's everything's gone up, right? Inflation, cost of living, everything. And so what I achieve is madness off the budget that I have, to be honest, what I've been able to do for 5 years. Fortunately, I've got a very big background and been able to do stuff like that, but it's just coming to a point where the inflation is just going to keep on going, and these events have grown massively. We've actually not used much council funding for the 5 out of 6 years I've had the contract. Last year was the first year we actually ever applied for funding, so we've got a very squeaky record. So it's just not viable. It's not enough money to be able to do the things that we need.
But my question was more focused around the Matariki event and how it's growing so rapidly. How is that achieved? Is it mainly word of mouth or extra publicity through social media? Or
I think it's a collaboration thing, right? I think it's buy-in and passion. I'm very passionate about what we do out there, and it's the relationships that we've built so strongly. It's a collaboration of things. It's pulling in the right people to have the right atmosphere. It's about creating the right attraction points to be able to connect with the end consumer, which is the local region, right? And the cool thing is when you marry all those factors up correct, it actually benefits the ratepayers as well. So it was really great to have feedback from the restaurants that they'd had the best weekend they'd ever had, to be honest, over that weekend. So I think it's a question of what kind of event you're trying to create. Are you marrying up the right relationships to be in that space? Are you connecting the right parts of the community, and do they talk to the community? and that's how all of that comes together to grow.
So you can say it's become a destination event. It's not just Papamoa. It's actually right across the city, or even further afield, or what's your...
Our event?
Yeah, the Matariki event.
Our event has become iconic for our destination. I think that there is a real opportunity for the region to work together and create more Matariki events. I think that it's a beautiful day to celebrate who we are as a cultural identity. But our event has become, yes, iconic for Papamoa, even North Island wide, the different areas that are coming through that we're seeing through our different mediums. So we've got Aucklanders, Wellingtonians, Hawke's Bay, Waikato, so they're all coming through. It's become quite iconic for Papamoa.
And what's the expectation next year, given the level of growth, and will you be able to manage it?
When there's a will, there's a way. So yes, I will be able to manage it, and it will be to grow. So we'll be celebrating. Yeah, I can't give you all my secrets yet.
Okay. Thank you. I think Councillor Taylor.
Just add my congratulations. You're doing a great job there, and yeah, Rick, I'd like to see how big it can get. Just a couple. I've got 3 quick questions. So the first one is, with your Matariki event, do you have sponsorship?
We will be putting a major partner over it this year, but what was really important last year is that we don't commercialise Matariki. You know, you've been very respectful about how you do that, and it's about respecting the Potski, and how we figure out that moving forward who is the best partnership, because we don't want to commercialise it. That would be, yeah.
Great settlement, but obviously you still want to run it, so there's got to be a trade-off. So
yeah.
That was one. The expansion of the area for your intake for funding, where do you see that going as far as how far north would you push into?
I would take it down to the new Blue Haven town centre going in down the end.
Other way, north.
North.
Sort of, sorry, west.
We would be going, so essentially what's deemed as Papamoa really is, it's kind of where we...
The supermarket and that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Papamoa's long and skinny, you're going to end up with a lot of business contributing. How are you going to spread the events so that, for example, the Blue Haven people get a whack at it?
Absolutely. So it's just looking about what's realistic. Would obviously go back to the strategic planning, and you'd have to move things around. It's about keeping fair and equal to all. I think that one of the main contributors that would help that is the website as well for the ratepayers. So what can we do in that avenue? I've got a massive background in doing projects like that. So how can we actually promote Papamoa stronger? You know, what's within the region, and I think there's a real opportunity there, especially for people coming from outside of town, to have that scope on what's in Papamoa. So that would benefit them the most immediately. And then it's looking at what events fit where and how we move them to make sure that everyone that's a part of that gets a fair share.
Right. Sorry, and then my last one was around your safety concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Rick's had a lot of conversations with some of the homeowners down there about what happened, and I think it was around the Matariki event that caused the initial stuff. Any ideas on solutions? Because we're scratching our head a little bit.
So I had a few people reach out to me as well. So before these events, Julia does a walkthrough and speaks to all the residents. So unfortunately, usually negative views are heard louder than positive views, because in terms of when this has happened, we've also had a lot of residents, especially on the waterway, congratulating us and saying they're behind us and doing these things. But yes, it's... we've spoken quite closely to council on that as well, but we find it's more of probably a council to come up with a solution for that. We kind of, having spoken to council and police on that, it's probably more in a council realm as to what the solution is there.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. No further questions? Thank you so much. Leah and Julia, if I could ask now, Main Street Tauranga.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Genevieve.
Hi everyone, how's it going? Do I have to press a button? Oh, right, okay, jump over here. Okay. So if I just speak like that, or do I have to press the... Okay, that's... Pardon?
One more time.
Like that?
There we go. The red. Good.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, we're away. Excellent. Okay, well, firstly, hi everyone. Firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. My name is Genevieve. I'm the manager for Downtown Tauranga. John, our chair, was here, but he had to run off. He's a very busy man. I'd also like to note that it was my intention to report in September, but we had a bereavement in my family. That's okay. So next slide. So it's no surprise, obviously, change is here. It's been a year now since we moved to a new business model. And now that we're 1 year in, we're starting to see some of the benefits of those changes, but it has been, it's just sort of slow and steady. This is not like we've entered a sprint, it's like we've entered a marathon with Downtown Tauranga. But our vision is still to try and make the city centre the best city centre in New Zealand. And I realise that's bold and ambitious, but I do think it's possible. Okay, can we go next slide? So we have 3 KPIs: an engaged membership, be able to advocate for our members and the people and the business in the city centre, and also effective promotions and marketing. Next slide. So I want to draw on some of the achievements that we've had in the last 6-month period. The first one being that we have our annual plan for 24-25 set up and a budget. And based on a year in, I've been able to make some changes to that, which I feel are more in line with supporting the community and our businesses. But the focus continues to be support, grow and tell, so that we can rebuild the positive narrative for the city centre. We've also increased transparency and communications with our e-newsletters and also our database uptake. So in this 6-month period, we've sent emails out to 10,698 recipients, and we've doubled since our last reporting period, and we've also had an increase in our open rate for our e-news, which has gone up to 57%, which is a 4% increase on the previous reporting period. We've also got a Downtown Tauranga WhatsApp group that we set up, and I'm excited to say that's starting to get some momentum, and that's about making the businesses feel part of a community. And that's now it's actually up to 77 members now, and it started probably had about 40 at the last reporting period. We're also trying to increase and I suppose have a really strategic plan with our promotions and marketing. So in March we took on Design Juice as our social media company, and since taking them on we've had a substantial increase in engagement and followers. Notable success was the May Mother's Day promotion, which more than quadrupled our typical engagement levels, and it also offered city centre businesses some spotlight and the opportunity for them to give away some prizes. And we also had our favourite place for lunch in the city centre reel, which reached nearly 10,000 views. So across all our social media platforms, we're now sitting at just over 17,000, and that's been a 10% increase since the last reporting period. In June, we also signed a contract with NZME Media. So the idea behind that is to start spotlighting and supporting more of these positive narrative stories, because one of the big challenges we've got is that Downtown Tauranga still is dealing with some negative press. So the idea behind it is to spotlight businesses, spaces and events that are happening that are really drawing on this idea that there are good things happening in the city centre and that people should come into the city. And in terms of city centre activations, we've done quite a few, but the ones I really want to spotlight are our Explorer Trail and our Matariki Trail. So these are 2 in-person / digital apps. So basically, the idea was to take people on a little bit of a tour around the city centre and get them to see some of the businesses, but also showcase some of the developments along the way. The Matariki Trail was really successful, and we got some fantastic feedback from the participants as well as the businesses. But it also celebrated the cultural significance of Matariki, and we would like to do something bigger next year. When we did Matariki, we'd just taken on a part-time person who was able to support in the event space, but I would like to see Matariki in particular grow for the city centre next year. And advocacy. So this is a biggie for us, for the businesses, and 2 things I'd like to draw on is the one-way traffic system. As soon as we found out about that, we went out to our members, we asked for feedback, and that was fed back to council within 48 hours. And we've also been working with KPMG and TCC and some other stakeholders on a city centre revitalisation strategy. And we've managed to also give feedback, basically go out to the businesses to give feedback on that and get their ideas about what they think should go into that strategy. Okay, next slide. So in progress projects, a biggie for us at the moment is our CRM database. When I started, we didn't have one particular database. It was just lots of different databases that we were trying to understand. So we're now drawing together one database so that we can connect more businesses in the city centre and understand the data as well as the vacant spaces. We're also developing stronger engagement with a number of key stakeholders such as Priority One, Tourism Bay of Plenty, Tauranga Business Chamber, and we're taking steps to connect with the local iwi, and we've started discussions with the Strategic Māori Engagement Unit at the Council. We recognise the need to develop and interweave this Māori narrative into our story and also our long-term strategy, and we've also taken steps to increase the use of Māori words in our communication channels. We're also looking to do a minimum of 4 business networking member-focused events a year. So the idea behind this is that businesses can meet up with us, come meet the board, come meet myself, come meet our part-time admin and events coordinator Amber, and the idea is about trying to draw on this sense of community and connection, because one of the biggest things I've had feedback from the businesses is that they don't feel part of a community. Okay, slide 7, the foot traffic. So we get our foot traffic data from Bellwether, and this is for Devonport Road only, so it doesn't give you the whole picture, but what it does show is that we are starting to have a steady increase. It's small, it's only at 4%, but the main thing is that the numbers are showing that there is an increase. And to me, it also represents that there's also, I'm seeing an interest from new businesses wanting to come into the city centre because they see potential here. But it's also good to obviously compare it with the sales data. So if we can go on to the next slide.
Are those poor people watching a council meeting? Inside out. Oh my gosh.
Public excluded, that they're outside.
Oh.
So for this reporting period, the revenue is sitting at 86 million. It's too early to make full predictions for the full year, but what I do want to note is obviously, unfortunately, New Zealand is now in a recession, and there has still been a slowish recovery from COVID, and there is still a little bit of a perception of a disrupted city centre, which is impacting to a certain degree still on downtown Tauranga as a destination. What is exciting is that the department stores and leisure spending is up by 11% since the same 6-month period last year, as well as accommodation, which is up by 12%. I'd just like to note that when I actually submitted the report, there was a mistake with the accommodation, which has said it was down. It is up, but because of the way we have, the general trend we have each year is that accommodation starts up around January, February, and it starts to drop off as we go into the winter months. So our assumption is that we will start to see it move up again. Next slide. So this is basically just showing what we've been seeing in the last 4 years with downtown Tauranga. So as you can see, in 2020, we've had COVID, obviously not great. 2021, there was a bit of a spike. And the last 2 years have been a little bit flat. And it's obviously too early right now to make predictions for 2024. But obviously with things starting to open up, we've got Tauranga City Council going in on Devonport Road in April next year. We've got Craig's Investment going down on the corner of the Strand and Devonport Road. We're starting to see this increase in foot traffic. And it's too early to make predictions, but with this extra people coming into the city centre and these extra businesses, I would hope that this would have an impact on the revenue. Unfortunately, next slide, we have seen a small dip in the hospitality spending. So that's down by 5.67% in comparison to the same 6-month period last year. Obviously, it's been recognised nationally that we're sitting in a recession. But we are taking active stance to try and give this Tauranga City Centre more visibility. So part of the reasons that we got on a platform called Neat Places, which is a nationwide marketing platform, is that it can just really help rewrite the story for downtown Tauranga. And it's a platform that's got 180k worth of visits a month, and it has a reach of over 100k on social media. And since being on it, and we've only been on it for 6 months, we've already had 200,000 views nationally. We're also looking at a number of city centre events and activations, and a lot of cross-collaboration, events and promotions with other stakeholders in the city centre over the next 6 months, to try and support hospitality because we realise that they've taken a hit. Okay, next slide. So challenges and actions. Obviously, construction and roadworks has been an ongoing issue for the city centre, and it's been difficult for the businesses to be operating in less than ideal circumstances. I do acknowledge that I feel like we're starting to tick some of these off. It was fantastic to see Masonic Parking opened. I know that the Boardwalk's going to be opening. So I do know that there is hope at the end of the tunnel, but it has been really, really tough on the businesses. We work really closely with Kendall and Gareth and their team to try and feed back the frustrations from the city centre and the businesses, and they've been fantastic at also trying to support us. We're also, we also circulate comms as quickly as we can to our members, so that's why our WhatsApp group has been really good, because it's a really reactive, quick place that we can drop something in and say, look, this road's going to be closed, or this is happening, here's the notice. And we've also been working with the Tauranga Business Chamber and TCC doing these business mentor workshops to try and help businesses in the city centre that are struggling, so they can give them help like financial support, marketing, strategy. And obviously the other big, I like to say, bogey is vacant spaces. And this came up in our last report. We're hoping that once we've got our CRM database complete, that we can really start targeting and looking at these vacant spaces and really talking to some of the landlords, because some of the landlords don't even live in Tauranga, they're based in Auckland, some of them aren't that invested. So I really want to sit down and really have these targeted discussions with them to try and get these spaces filled. We're also trying to utilise our marketing and our promotions to try and show that there is still great things happening in the city centre. Our vacant space numbers, the report that we have, obviously it's not, the data is from April, but is actually showing that the vacant spaces are dropping. And we also want to look to have discussions with landlords about pop-ups and short-term use of those vacant spaces. Like, for example, we've just taken on a place on Devonport Road for 3 months for a Santa's Grotto / mural exhibition space. So we're trying to encourage more of that to try and give small businesses a chance in the city centre. And then next slide, looking ahead. So the biggie for us at the moment is finishing our 3 to 5 year strategy. So it's been through the board, we've done a session, I'm now critiquing it further, and that will then go out to our members for their consultation and engagement. And we're looking to adopt a new constitution at our AGM. And then our final slide is the financials. So the total operating expenses were 275,000, and we had a carryover of 145,000, which is a bit bigger than what I would like. I'd like to note that also, I started in September, and this is for a whole financial year, so we had the whole 3 months without anyone managing or looking after downtown Tauranga, which does represent why that is bigger than it should be. Anyway, thank you very much for my report. Has anyone got any questions?
Councillor Boris, and then Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for what you're doing, Genevieve. It's challenging, but it's exciting too,
Yes.
the potential there. Times previous on council, there was a downtown Tauranga had a large contract with Tuscany. Has that come to a conclusion? Have things changed there since I've come back a couple of months ago?
Yeah. So basically what happened is Tuscany was in place, and the decision was made to not continue, and so the contract was finished in June last year. And basically, new financial year, basically new business model start again from July. So that was when Ash came in as chair, but they took a while to recruit my position, and I didn't come in until the end of September. So poor old downtown Tauranga was sort of in a bit of a mess for 3 months. When I arrived, there was an inbox with 450 unread emails, and it was just basically like, it literally felt like we had to just literally start everything from scratch. And I feel like I've been stretched a bit further than I'd like to, because there's certain things I'd really like to focus on more, but because of time and resources, it's really difficult.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Kia ora, through you to Chair. Sorry, semi-tangent, and probably a question for all our main streets that are here, if you're comfortable in answering the question. It's sorry to put you all on the spot.
That's okay.
Do you feel like you're competing against one another, and are we contributing to any kind of competition? And if so, how can we mitigate that and better support collaboration if the appetite's there?
I have to say, I don't actually feel like we're competing. I've actually found nothing but support from all the other main streets, and I know previously there have been collaborations that have been done which have been really successful, so I would actually love to see more of that, and I'm pretty confident that Julie, and I know that Michael at Main Street, he really wants to collaborate. I'm pretty sure Greerton does as well. Yeah, and we've had, because obviously every 2 months we meet up and have like a chat and check in and how things are going, but we haven't done like a focused event together or activation, and I would welcome that.
Yeah, I'd second that from our end too. At the end of the day, if we can bring people into the region, that's great for us all, right? How do we nurture that and help each other do this other across all areas?
Yeah.
Unique elements of each of our areas as well, having a specific draw of different people as well. So if we put all of that together, then everybody can be well served by that collaboration.
And one thing I'd like to say, and I can't go into too much detail right now because it's getting revealed at our AGM, but we have been working on some promotional content, which has been quite a large part of our advertising budget to really showcase Tauranga from a national perspective. We're working with a film company. I can't say any more, but I've seen the draft and it's getting presented to the board tomorrow, and I'm excited because it really encompasses showcasing what Tauranga has got to offer, which is a lot.
Thank you.
Sorry, and lastly, just for the record, I know that you guys also might be looking for a Santa Claus, which we might have here, but I know that Mia Mahe fancies himself a bit of a Will Ferrell, so if you need an elf, then I think he's gone on record to say that he prefers to be that as well.
Thank you.
Just so that's noted.
I'd actually like to note that Santas are in high demand, and we had to book our Santa in April, and he said, I'm filling up, and if you want me, you need to book me now.
As in like filling up. Any further questions? Councillor Taylor?
No real questions because I'm reasonably up to date with what's happening there, but yeah, I think the fact that you're a bit of a late starter in this last financial year has sort of put us on the back foot there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really, really good to go running into next year, and
Yeah.
I think the AGM next week is going to be a good event.
Yeah, and I think what I'm excited by is now that I've been in the role a year, I really understand how the numbers work. Because when I first started, I was like, well, what are our big costs? You know, where's the money going? And now I get it. And, you know, we're tracking them every month at the board meeting. And, you know, now that we're in a new financial year, I have no intention of seeing that kind of carryover. We obviously want a little bit, but that kind of carryover makes people ask questions like, well, what's going on?
Finally, we'll close with Councillor Curran, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. The production that's going to be presented tomorrow, what's the target audience for that? How will that be
Yeah,
pushed
how will
out?
it be pushed out? So it'll be pushed out over a number of platforms. One, we've just launched our new website. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a great improvement from our previous website. But it will probably go out on a separate YouTube channel platform, and we'll also have our social media. There's also potential for other stakeholders to potentially come in with it as well, but that would have to be negotiated because obviously we've got a separate contract with this film company in terms of pushing that out. But yeah, the idea would be to get I would want it to be marketed and promoted across a number of different platforms to have as much coverage as possible. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. No further questions. Thank you very much for your time, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you.
And call up Greerton Village. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting us here today. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, our Main Street manager is unable to attend this meeting, so I'm afraid that you have myself, the chair, Rebecca, and Tony, who is now our treasurer. Rosalie was here in support as well, and many of you know Rosalie. Between us, we do have about 23 years of collective experience in and around the Greerton Association and Greerton itself, but each of us has been in these specific roles for exactly 1 week today. So bear with us as we go into this new and slightly unexpected early foray into formal council business. But it is a pleasure to be here. Due to that short notice, I'm afraid we don't have a visual presentation, but heads up that the three main topics that I will talk through today are the highlights, so what have the last 6 months looked like for Greerton, engagement, what do we consider is key to making Greerton work, and opportunities. And so onto those themes. The highlights. So I'm pleased to report that over the past 6 months, all planned projects for the year to date have been successfully completed. For Valentine's Day, we surprised the local shoppers and shopkeepers alike with Julio, our unicycling Latin lover, who handed out flowers and heart-shaped chocolates to the shoppers in Greerton for Valentine's Day. It caused quite a stir in the village, which, whilst being a bit of fun, also led to people taking a pause in their day-to-day activities, taking a good look around Greerton and appreciating the lovely window displays that our creative businesses had put out. In turn, that then encouraged people into those businesses and to discover some stores that they perhaps had not visited before. As part of a new direction for marketing, we invested in a digital advert online for Mother's Day, and this received just shy of 30,000 impressions, which was a great outcome in and of itself. But it also worked in conjunction with a social media giveaway for that special lady in your life, whereby many local businesses contributed to hampers that were won by some delighted prize winners. The combination provided not only a great treat for those lucky winners, but also wonderful publicity for the participating businesses. As is customary in Greerton, we held the annual Easter egg hunt. This is hugely popular and is a really fun event for all of the family. There was excellent take-up from our local businesses who dressed their windows and hid the eggs for spotting. Naturally, the winners of the hunt were delighted to have their pictures taken and happily went away to consume a lot of chocolate. It was some proper feel-good family fun for the school holidays. And then from the end of June through to August the 20th, 16 trees in Greerton were covered in fairy lights, and the tree outside of Greerton School was decorated with the 9 stars for Matariki. The purpose of the dressing of the trees began as the immediate celebration of the event, but given the levels of positive feedback received from the public, as some of you may have seen, the lights remain in full glow in Greerton, and more are to be added. And this is a great example of a community feel initiative that created a welcoming atmosphere and has really encouraged people to drive through Greerton after dusk to have a look at the lights and stop for supper, and then to come back again to look at the trees in the daytime to find the hidden tree art that's been placed around the village. The roles of art and colour are really important when it comes to creating an attractive environment, and it draws people in, and our businesses are given the opportunity then to entice potential patrons into their businesses. That being said, it has been a difficult period, with the closure of, in particular, Greerton Furnishings, it having held a key and long-standing position on Chadwick Road, and it occupied large premises. Thankfully, that lease was taken over by our new gym, which in itself is another new draw for Greerton. As an aside, I'm sure everybody is now aware of the closures of the Countdown site on Cameron Road. It's new to us as well, and we will be talking with the local businesses about any appropriate response to that to support the community going forward. And so then moving on to engagement. In March 2024, our Main Street manager engaged the services of a social media contractor with the aim of bringing consistency across our digital communications to attract more followers and to encourage further interactions on our Facebook and Instagram accounts. And it worked. On Facebook, we now have 4,500 followers, and engagement with the page has gone up by 350% in the last 28 days. probably in response to things that have been happening in the local community. People know how to get hold of us and how to make their voices heard. Our Instagram has garnered 200 new followers since March, and this virtual engagement has nicely reflected the overall increase in footfall on our streets, which speaks to one of our KPIs, excuse me, which was to gain traction and audiences through the use of social media. We're well aware that communication is key. Last week's AGM was a lively affair. I'd like to thank Councillor Taylor for attending that one. And the passions of the local businesses really came to the fore at that meeting. It was evident that the two-way street for feedback is absolutely essential for us to meet our goals. We're delighted that he was with us there and appreciated his time and taking interest in the association. Stemming from that meeting, we're working on an update to our communication strategy to ensure that the needs of our members are met and that also the slim resources we have are put to the most effective use in order to deliver on our commitments. Another of our KPIs is to continue to learn and grow through governance training. Jens Müller kindly came along to our June board meeting to take everyone through such training, and we are working to ensure that the knowledge gained is fed into our work on our new constitution that we're putting in place in light of the updates to the Incorporated Societies Act. Greerton is, by and large, a safe and a welcome place in which to live and work and also to visit. But of course, in common with the other main streets, there have been and there can be issues with rough sleepers and other antisocial behaviour. We're very excited about the recent appointment of Shannon Clifford, our new Bobby on the beat. Shannon's role represents a real step change for him, and he has come along to our AGM this time round to share his ideas about how he and his team can best support Greerton with the ongoing support of our brilliant community patrol. To make sure that we see a real difference on the streets and that safe environment is really fostered. Additionally, we were interested to hear about the success of the Mounts Safety WhatsApp group and have a view to canvassing opinions of our own members about the prospect of rolling out such a scheme for Greerton. And we hope to be able to emulate their success. And similarly to, as Genevieve just mentioned as well, about how downtown make use of WhatsApp group for positive reasons as well. For example, the road closures, etc., if events are going ahead. And then finally, in this section, we've already touched on it thanks to the earlier question. Kendall does really encourage us to work collaboratively as Main Streets, and I'm sure we're all very grateful for her doing that. And so to the future, what's next for Greerton? Council has already received the draft annual plan for the coming months, and we are pleased with that as a working document for our starting point. We hope you are too. Having in mind the transitions and ever-increasing diversity within Greerton, the plan serves us well as a document to be under review and reflection that we can respond therefore to the micro and macro conditions affecting the village. Another of our key KPIs was to adapt events to suit the changes in our community. We've begun to do this by taking a fresh look at our well-established events, for example the Cherry Blossom Festival, and asking ourselves how we can best ensure that these are inclusive and reflecting our community changes. We believe that by reflecting the community's interests and piquing their interests and needs, we can increase the appeal of Greerton, both locally and also by encouraging visitors from further afield to come in. We've tabled events during both the day and the evenings to give everyone a chance to sample what Greerton is all about. Whilst I'm not at liberty to give too much away, we have a fresh approach to Christmas on the cards, and if we're lucky, perhaps Julio will come around on his unicycle again come Valentine's Day next year. Just a few quick thanks, if I may. Obviously to Kendall with her ongoing and invaluable support, Paul Mason, our community patrol, the Lions, Greerton Library and the Greerton Village School. They're key stakeholders for us and we get an awful lot of support from them and we're hugely grateful to all of those people. So in conclusion, Greerton is a lovely little suburb and the gateway to Tauranga South. It has a strong and enduring sense of community and has a village feel and it has a welcoming and safe environment. With a hugely diverse business population demographic, the greatest challenge for Greerton is that subtle art of balancing inclusivity through variety whilst honouring our traditions. Effective events enabled us to meet our objectives, and we're fortunate that our businesses as a cohort are realistic enough to understand how important it is to change with the times. We're looking forward to continuing to listen, to learn, and to be proactive as we further seize opportunities that any challenges may present to us. Thank you. Were there any questions?
Item 2 questions from elected members. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks for the report. Really, really good. I do have about 4 questions. I'll get through them really quickly. I think we talked the other night, or it was mentioned the other night, about potentially expanding, as we've discussed with Papamau this morning. Thoughts on that and where you might go? And like I think I've talked before with Mahia about Cape Pa and Maryvale as potential candidates to add to your catchment.
Yeah, it's not something that we've put to members as yet. I think that it's something that really fits in more with a medium-term plan, because there are some more immediate elements that we need to address first before we expand. So make sure that we have the core up and running before offering that further. And we spoke to the diversity, didn't we, already? Which areas would be appropriate to include? Sorry, Tony.
No, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were...
No, I was just going to add that obviously from the inclusion would be a benefit to increase our funding, but then we don't want to detract from the Greerton Village side of things. So there's still a number of discussions to take place before we sort of really seriously look at that.
So definitely on the agenda, but...
Yep.
The second thing, I was just sort of talking about the safety side of things, and I visited about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it was looking pretty dire at that stage, and we've since had the police step up. That's probably something you just need to keep in touch with if they back off again and we end up sliding backwards. Clifford sounds sincere. Sorry, Shannon sounds sincere, and it was great to see him at the AGM last week.
Yeah, it was really good to see him there.
Yeah, I think his programme of popping into the shops for a cup of tea or a biscuit or whatever and having a chat with people as he's going around at different times of day means that he builds up a big picture as well of what's actually happening, if there are any flashpoints within the village during the day.
I think Genevieve's a bit envious that we haven't got that in the centre of town.
But yeah, it certainly seems the last 4 or 5 weeks it's made an immediate impact. It's noticeable.
And then looking at your AGM, it was reasonably sparse turnout, like engaging with the businesses and getting them to actually contribute. It sort of got quite negative there at a couple of stages, and I think that's possibly just people that have been around for a long time don't like change, and but how do you get the other businesses that are obviously members but don't turn up?
So I think there is a plan for a renewed communications strategy. So harnessing some more of that social media element where we can, and then perhaps a structured programme around newsletters, and really establishing that two-way street of here are the forum in which you can raise certain issues, here are the response times, so giving our members specific KPIs as to how we will respond to their immediate needs as they arise, which then obviously makes us more accessible. It's important obviously that voices are heard and that we're able to respond in a timely fashion.
Sorry, just from my experience with the Downtown Tauranga WhatsApp, that's a really good way of getting really instant communication amongst the group. So
yeah, that does sound good. Yeah, we've talked about that since the AGM as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, and then the last one, your manager is moving, is that?
Yes, nothing's been confirmed as yet.
It's a bit of a shame. Mahia seems to have a really good rapport with some of the shoppers.
Yeah, certainly. So yes, I think it's a question of watch this space at the moment, and we will be ready to respond as and when if appropriate.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any further questions?
Do we have time after all of Rod's questions?
We can take one or two.
I'm kidding. Kia ora. Hey, great presentation. Sorry I missed the beginning there. We heard from Mount Mains that the markets have a bit of an impact on business. Do you guys have that same experience with the markets that happen at the racecourse?
It's an interesting question because there aren't any specific locations in the vicinity of Greerton that would immediately detract from Greerton. And we actually deployed little big markets to boost the Cherry Blossom Festival this year in the Greerton Hall, because the way Greerton's set up is effectively a T like this. So putting that up there then actually increased the foot traffic for people coming along the Cameron Road section rather than just the Chadwick Road, which had all of the cars on there. So I think we see it as potential opportunities, but we need to be very sensitive to introducing low-cost competition when obviously Greerton does have a number of high-profile charity shops that are very successful. But
yeah, because there are obviously some businesses that find that a negative, bringing markets into the village.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's trying to balance that and keeping one area happy without really upsetting the other area, which is a constant challenge.
Thank you. No further questions? Well, thank you very much for your presentation. For all the presentations we received from Papamoa and down Tauranga Main Street and Greerton Village. Just would now like to call for a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Morris and seconder Councillor Baker.
Is that including C, which I'd like to read out?
Would you like to put?
Yeah. I'd also further like to move a C if it's meets the approval of the seconder. There isn't a seconder yet. There might be. I request staff prepare an issues and options paper on expanding the Papamoa Main Street area that includes options on consultation and engagement with the local community. Are you happy with that, Councillor? Sure. Yeah.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Happy to speak to
yes,
the whole thing. I just really want to commend our 4 main streets for the work they're doing in our community and adding tremendous vibrancy. Also want to make the observation about the level of positivity from the different main streets, and that's something that I've noticed as a real great thing to see, a great change actually over the last few years. Also declare an interest. This suit came from Greerton Menswear, so I'd just like to declare that. It's out of zone. But hey, we're all one big city here. He iwi tahi tātou. I also want to say, just in relation to Papamoa in particular, when I was growing up there, we were a very small, tight-knit village, not even in the Tauranga District Council or area. We were part of Tauranga County Council, which became part of the Western Bay. So we were a real tight-knit community, and we may have lost that over the years a little bit, but due to the work that Papamoa Unlimited and others are doing, we're really getting it back. And the Matariki event was spectacular. The Santa Parade always brings out a huge contingent of participants and people who are watching it along the side of the road. And so I think it would be really good to consult with our wider Papamoa community about helping Papamoa Unlimited to go to the next level, if that's even possible. Because we are one long 18-kilometre long community, and so it'd be interesting how we can make that work in the context of being. I thought Councillor Taylor was referring to me being long and slim before, but apparently wasn't a long and slim 18-kilometre Papamoa beach. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you. Senator, would you like to speak now? Or?
Yeah. Total the sentiments by Councillor Morris. Just thank you to the main streets that presented and to Mount Mains who presented earlier as well. Really positive, and just commend your guys' resilience and the resilience of the businesses who have stuck it out, and hopefully with all the work that Council's doing and we move on from the impacts of COVID, that you guys and our businesses will start to reap the rewards of an increasingly vibrant city. So tēnā koutou.
Councillor Baker, open the motion up for discussion and debate. Any further comments? I just might add that maybe if Papamoa grows another 8 kilometres, your next event could be a half marathon.
What's that?
Oh, you do the math. You do the math. No, but really, I just talk with the sentiments, but well put by Councillor Morris that bringing just the care that's there and then the love for those areas, and that your positivity is actually came through today really well, and those things are what communities need. And a growing city with growing pains, be able to take it back to small centres and have things that people can relate to and feel proud of as their particular area, I think is really cool. So I really commend you, not only on what you did today, but obviously the work you're doing right through. Thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, I would like to... We don't have to read it. We'll read it. It's taken as read. All those in favour? Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you very much. We will I'll adjourn the meeting now. We'll have a small 15-minute morning tea break and a good chance for elected members and the Main Street presenters to have a cup of tea and a biscuit. So thank you. We will reconvene at 11:35.
So use them or not use them?
Yeah, we adjourn.
Use them.
Use it?
We'll use them and, yeah.
We'll continue using the mics. Okay, I'll just re-adjourn the meeting at 11.
Oh, Mr. Chair, can I just say something as well?
Yes, you can.
I know that
Councillor.
Gareth's teams vacated the building, all the room, but can I just give compliments to the team because I know there's been some changes on the Tauranga City Council side in terms of resourcing up to help the relationships between the main streets and us and them, and it was just really refreshing to see a difference in the positivity of the main streets coming in to the chamber, and also how we're interacting with them as an organisation and supporting them, and that's something I noticed, having a 3.5-year break.
Thank you for that feedback. It was actually the previous council that gave us the direction to resource up to support our main streets to succeed. So up until that point, no one held the responsibility really for ensuring that they had the support of council to achieve what they wanted to. And so they'd come up with a problem. They just have to kind of dive into the organisation to try and work out how to solve the problem. But it was the previous council that said, no, we need to provide a dedicated resource to support them, and that's where we created Kendall's role, and it's absolutely made a difference in terms of positive working relationship and therefore what they're being able to achieve out there in the community. So it was a decision made by the previous council 4 years ago that we implemented, and I think you're exactly right. You're seeing a completely different relationship with our Main Street organisations, not without challenges, especially in that safety space, but considerably different to what it was 3-4 years ago.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. We'll move on to item 10.2, alcohol control bylaw. I see Sarah has already found a way to the seat. So.
Thank you, Chair, Councillors. This is a paper amending our alcohol control bylaw. The alcohol control bylaw sets out alcohol-free areas across the city. Some of them are 24/7, some are overnight, and some are seasonal. And these areas help reduce alcohol harm in public spaces. And the bylaw itself provides specific powers to the police to be able to enforce those areas. On 16th of September, this council approved a temporary ban over the summer period between the mountain one and Papamoa, and there's a gap in that area, and you set a temporary ban to fill that gap with a seasonal alcohol ban. That was, as we mentioned at the time, the 7th time that temporary ban's been put in place. And we advised then that we would be coming to this committee seeking adoption of a permanent ban. So we have a revised alcohol control bylaw for you in Appendix 1, and in red it shows where that temporary ban would be included. We have a statement of proposal that would form the basis of consultation, and we have a summary of evidence that was provided by the community and police back in 2018 when that temporary ban was first put in place. So the purpose of the paper is to approve consultation on the bylaw amendment, and we would be looking to consult on that from the 4th of November through to the 6th of December. Given it's a relatively simple matter, the community are familiar with it. It's been through this summer, it will be in place for 7 years essentially. The intent would be just to consult with the local residents in that area, primarily through a letter directly to residents. And then the committee, once that consultation had happened, would hold hearings, consider any submissions that were made, and then deliberate on what your decisions might be. You'll remember in your terms of reference, you are delegated to review and develop bylaws, to hold hearings, but the adoption of a bylaw must be done by council. So the committee would make a recommendation on the bylaw to council for adoption.
Councillor Taylor, question?
Sorry, just a quick one. You talked about the evidence from the police and that being 2018. Are we happy that that's not too old?
Because the summer bans have been put in place every year since, the feedback from police and that surrounding community has been that the temporary ban is really effective, and that's why each year we've come to council for another temporary ban. Police have written a letter in support, and anecdotally the community are really positive about what that's achieved. So it's hard, that's the baseline of when things weren't great. Temporary bans in place, and all reports from police have been that it's been working really well.
So if anything, it'll prove a reminder perhaps to what, when the ban happening maybe. Thank you.
Councillor Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and if you want some tips on how to do an effective notice of motion, just have a look at page 111. Was it something about the Kumara doesn't say how sweet it is? There's a proverb there. Question about Parton Road and Gordon Spratt in Papamoa. So in previous years, that area has been included. I think the last time was in 2024. Bearing in mind that there was a New Year's Eve event at Gordon Spratt, sponsored and assisted by council and mayor and councillors doing sausage sizzles and all sorts of things. This is a few years ago. But that seems to have been not part of the proposal here. So it was a temporary ban between Christmas and New Year, and it was in response to historic issues spilling out from one of the motor camps there down into around the skate park and into Gordon Spratt. So is that something staff have considered, and if not, would you consider it again prior to, well, we're approving consultation now, aren't we? Yeah, prior to going out. Long-winded question.
We haven't had specific requests for any temporary bans in that area. What we could look to is to include it as a temporary ban in the next period of time. I think we could do that before that New Year's Eve, so we could come back to the next committee with an option to do that. As I said, we don't have any call from the community or police requesting that specifically, but we could do it through a temporary ban again and see how that goes, if that would be how the committee would like to move forward.
Just to clarify what we're talking about, is that they sort of like the caravan park where there's a lot of permanent dwellers there. What is it called?
It was back in the day called Papamoa Village Park. May still be called that. There was an historic issue many years ago, sort of 20 years ago, which led to that.
But you are aware of continuing issues there?
Not aware of continuing issues here.
Are we talking to Sarah or?
Well, I tend to wait until there are issues before we go. Yeah, I just would prefer to wait until there are issues identified before proceeding any further on that. That's my personal view.
Yeah. Look, just while there's a Mutual Appreciation Society in session here, just wondering, if the team could look at the rationale for why that was a temporary ban, and I think the last one was last Christmas, and it was particularly around when council was holding an event there at Gordon Spratt. So if you could look into the rationale behind that, that I think would satisfy me for this year. Yep.
Councillor Baker?
Kia ora, through you, the Chair. Just looking at the graphs and the graphs, or the coloured things, and we've got a permanent ban in the Mount, except for Waikorere, well, Pilot Bay, but then during summer there's a ban placed over that stretch of whenua as well, or area. Does that cause confusion with our, do we know if that causes confusion or hoha with residents, or is it hard for us or the police to monitor that because it changes? Like, is it easier just to keep it consistent and with the rest of the mountain have Waikōrere permanently banned, restricted, or do we not actually have any? Is it a non-issue? Is that my question, Claire?
We haven't received any advice suggesting that it is confusing. I think there's the influx of people that come through on New Year's in that period of time. It's easier to have a much wider area closed. Certainly not something that we've heard from police that they have difficulty monitoring or enforcing. Yeah.
No further questions? Well, thank you very much. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Taylor and seconded Councillor Baker. Maybe you'd like to speak to the motion? No? Seconder? No? Open for discussion and debate. Any discussion and debate, gentlemen? No? No, that being the case, we'll just put that to the vote as is in the report. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Moving now to 10.3, the development of an alcohol fees bylaw. I understand Councillor Taylor will excuse himself. And the floor is yours again when he has departed. Sarah.
As you know, in order to sell alcohol in New Zealand, a licence is required, and the process for doing that is administered by local councils across the country. The Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act intends that the cost of doing that would be fully cost recovered by local councils, and fees were prescribed in what's called the Sale and Supply of Alcohol's Fees Regulations, and they were set back in 2013, and they haven't been changed since. What that leaves us with is a situation where the work of administering the licensing regime is approximately only 40% of those costs are recovered by council, which means nearly 60% are actually being covered by general rates, and so the ratepayer are paying for alcohol licences. The Act does allow for councils to set fees outside of that fee regime, but a bylaw is required to do that. We've got 6 councils across New Zealand that have so far taken that up. More recently, as those 2013 fees become quite outdated, in the paper that's in front of you on Appendix 1, we've got those fees that the different councils have set. So, for example, a medium risk application fee, what we might charge is about $800. What Hastings would charge is about $1,500, which they are recovering the costs of doing the business. I know that council will be having a wider conversation about user fees and charges, and that will be part of, as you always do, an annual plan process where you consider setting each year what fees and charges will look like, and it's an opportunity to think about the user pays principle and how you want to apply that across the services council provide. But if you do decide that 40% cost recovery rate isn't appropriate for alcohol licensing, we can't change those fees until a bylaw is put in place. So what we have got in front of you today is just a recommendation to develop a bylaw. The bylaw won't set the fees. You will continue to set fees through the fees and charges process each year, but it is the tool that enables you to set them when you're ready to do that. So we recommend getting in front of it so that you've got the tool ready if you decide that you want to increase the fees. We're proposing that if you agree with the development of the bylaw, we would come back in November with a draft for your consideration. We could then consult through February, March next year with a wide part of the community, not just our licence holders, but we would do some extensive consultation because this affects ratepayers. And come back again, like I said, for the alcohol control bylaw. This committee can prepare the draft, can consult on the draft, can hear from submitters and deliberate and then make a recommendation to full council on adopting a bylaw if you think that that's appropriate. We have included a recommendation to use an indicator of what the fees could potentially be. I think that that will enable the community to engage on what the scale of difference would be between our current charges and, for instance, if we were going to go to 100% cost recovery of alcohol licensing, what would that mean for licensees? We've got a table in paragraph 38 that sets that out. Just say there's a typo in there on the right hand column that we say 1,000% cost recovery. Apology, that's 100%. Yes.
Saw that, I got that highlighted.
But we would recommend through consultation using a figure that gives the community an indication of what fees might change to. But again, I just want to emphasise that doesn't mean we'd be setting fees through the bylaw. The bylaw is just the tool.
Thank you. I think obviously it's an older act, it's fairly dated and not having flexibility. I can understand why you're bringing this to us, and also understand, I suppose, in the greater context of this committee around engagement and transparency, that front footing, the potential costs, rather than just the academic theory of it, is a better way, a good way to engage with the ratepayers and the community through the process of actually, setting. So thank you for bringing this to us. I'll just, any questions? Councillor Morris.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you. Yeah, thank you. I understand getting the process right so that we can consider using fees and charges across the whole city and organisation and different activities. How is the team proposing to nest this conversation into that wider user fee and charges conversation so that we can enable some consistency across the board?
Through you, Chair, the intention would be when you have your user fees and charges conversation, you'll be looking at all the services that we provide, like alcohol licensing, building consents, all of those cost recoverable services, and being able to look at the split of where that lies, what's the ratepayer paying for and what's the user paying for. If through that process, and we will provide information on what the current split is, like as outlined in this paper, and if council decide that's not right and that the cost recovery needs to change, you could do that through the next annual plan process when you're consulting on user fees, specifically for alcohol, or you may decide, and we can align the bylaw with that. So if you recommend adoption of the bylaw, we can make sure that those two processes are aligned. Or you might want the bylaw first and then consider changes to user fees in later years. But we will provide that list of what's currently cost recovered and what's not.
Supplementary? Yes. Yeah, and that's a wider conversation beyond the regulatory and compliance activity at council. I think there's an appetite to look at it across the entire scope, different activities.
A long walk for a short yes.
Thank you.
We're trying to arrange some more time in diaries for the workshop which will cover that whole funding needs analysis for each activity, and then the actual cost recovered at the moment, the actual ratepayer input at the moment on all of the activities. And then you can, once you've had a look at those across the board, you will then provide us at a later time, not in the workshop, but at a later time, with some direction as to which ones you might want to change. But that will be not just Sarah's group and the regulatory, it will right across the whole organisation.
That's great. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, Councillor Correct.
In the context of the current fees that you're looking at here, is there quite a large public good component in that that established the current fee, or was that just a full cost recovery at the time it was introduced, and since then costs have increased quite substantially? Did we go into it with the full cost recovery, in terms of the private benefit from the outlets that they receive?
The fees regulations that were set through central government had intended on the most part for it to be fully cost recovered, but there are elements, there is a fee, and you'll see in Appendix 1, managers' certificates are specifically removed and set, and councils through a bylaw can't change those, and that's that public good of having the right people behind the bar serving, or behind an off-licence serving alcohol. So the intention for the venues themselves, fully cost recovered, but having a cap on those managers' certificates for that very reason, the public good.
Any further questions? No? Oh, no further questions. I'll ask for a move and a seconder. I move Councillor Kurak, seconder Councillor Baker.
All I can say is it's a very logical approach to moving forward with this now, and look forward to it.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, nothing? Okay, so, shall I read it? I'll read it out, since that was so fast. Put the motion that the recommendations that the Community Transparency and Engagement Committee, A, receives the report, the development of an alcohol fees bylaw, B, approves the development of an alcohol fees bylaw, and C, agrees to use 100% cost recovery as an indication of potential new fees for the purposes of community consultation on the draft bylaw. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? No, carried. Okay, and if someone would like to get Councillor Taylor back. Oh, we will actually. Actually, I'm not going to do that. Is he coming?
We should all leave the room. Yeah.
All those in favour of Councillor Taylor being centre, say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Welcome back. Welcome back, Councillor Taylor. We move on to item 10.4, changes to the street dining licence to occupy fees. And Gareth and Sean, over to you.
Kia ora team. Council staff have a piece of work underway at the moment to expand the licence to occupy agreements in the city centre and Mount Maunganui. That was as the result of a decision of the previous council or the commissioners who wanted to put in place a system that was fairer, more consistent and more transparent. So that decision was consulted on as part of last year's long-term plan and implemented from 1 July this year. Because of the time it was going to take to get around all of the relevant businesses and inform them of the decision and start to sign those businesses up to that new arrangement, staff exercised their discretion and their ability to create a 100% discount on the fees until such time as everyone was signed up and everything was in place. And then the council decision prior to that was that an 80% discount would be in place until such time as we hit the next financial year, which was 1 July 2025. That allowed staff the opportunity, like I said, to get around and get everyone signed up to the same agreement, but it also allowed the opportunity for the new council to review those arrangements as part of an annual plan process. So staff have been getting on with that job. We've been out and about talking to businesses in the city centre, in an expanded city centre area all the way up to 11th Ave, and started conversations with businesses in Mount Maunganui about that expansion of their licence to occupy or LTO spaces. The 27 businesses in the city centre that already had an LTO and were paying for it knew it was coming, and I would suggest largely are supportive of fairness and consistency and transparency. The 70 plus businesses at the Mount that do not currently pay an LTO probably weren't that aware that it was heading their way, and also now that the conversations have started, have some level of resistance to the concept of having to pay, which is not unsurprising. What we wanted to do was bring a paper on the table just to bring some of the background to your attention, because we know you're probably getting approached about it, and as recently as today I think there was an article in the media about the rollout of a new LTO arrangement. So we wanted as staff to provide you the background, let you know what we're currently doing, but then also let you know that as was originally planned, there is the opportunity through the annual plan process or as part of a broader piece of work to review user fees and charges for the current council to stamp your direction on what we do with charging for the use of LTO space. So, for example, there are currently 4 zones, and all 4 zones have different rates based on, market value. You could have 6 zones, you could have 1 zone, you could charge the same. It's all up for your influence, subject to us providing you information to make an informed decision. So that was the purpose today, was to provide that background. Happy to answer any questions in terms of where we're at, what we're doing, and then also acknowledging the fact that regardless of today's conversation, you do have an opportunity coming up relatively soon to get involved in the conversation and steer it in a different direction as part of that annual plan process. So that's my quick intro, I guess, and then happy to answer any questions, because as I said, I know it is attracting some interest.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Open for questions. Councillor Currat.
Thank you, Gareth. So in terms of the scheme, you've obviously got a figure in mind, which is the proposed collection in terms of dollars, and you'd have some indication of the cost of administering the scheme. Where is that at in terms of the net result? Approximately, is there a number there once it's fully introduced?
The cost to introduce is quite different to the cost to maintain. So the cost to maintain once it's in place is largely incorporated as part of BAU of the organisation. It's not a complex process, it's a rolling over of agreements, and that would be absorbed as part of someone's role. So that I can't give you the exact amount, but the gross revenue would be quite similar to the net revenue once it's in place. We haven't run the exact calculation on the cost to implement the scheme, so I couldn't give you that figure today, but we can go and add up 0.4 of this person's time and 0.2 of that person's time and 0.3 of that person's time over a period of 8 to 12 weeks and probably give you a number.
That wasn't my question.
Right, so once we hit implementation, it is, I would suggest, largely cost neutral. I mean, there's largely limited cost in terms of maintaining it.
And the net result, though, what we're talking about dollar-wise?
It's about $250,000, revenue. Give or take, because at this stage we still have to negotiate with those LTO spaces. Some of them might say, no, I don't want to pay to use that space, so I will no longer have tables out the front. Others might want less LTO space than we're offering because of the cost. Some might want to negotiate for a bit more because the person next door, we still have to have those conversations. Also, we've based it on the figures that were set as part of the bylaw that's currently in place. Again, you might come up with a different calculation in terms of how we set that dollar amount. You might want to call it $100 flat, and that might change that gross amount. But at the moment, $250,000 is the estimate. Sean?
So, yes, sorry, I would just add that also being waived for this financial year is a $500 administration fee for a new or reassigned licence to occupy. That was due to the rolling out. that would also be something that you could assess as part of the annual plan process, of if that's reasonable. But that was associated with the idea of when you do have a new or you've got a new owner and that LTO is getting changed to somebody else, there is additional cost in that, and allowing council to recover that additional cost above the maintenance of the agreement.
So it's assigned to a person, not a business?
Sorry, it's assigned to a business, but when properties get change hands or businesses change hands.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to Mr. Bowes, who's sitting right up the back there. Apologies. LTOs, licence to occupy, does that form part of the discussion we're having on user fees and charges? Yeah, you can do.
Not a long walk from there, yes.
Oh, great.
So the first version you're going to have is going to be at a activity sort of level, at a fairly high level, but within that there are examples, and obviously the LTOs will come through that, and then that will spark your interest in various areas, and then you will get papers later on to say what you're actually interested in teasing out. Yeah, nothing's off the table, the whole lot's there.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, so just persisting with the admin fee, $500. Is that really around doing a lease document? Is it a realistic cost, or is it over the top?
I would have to get the breakdown back to you, but there is the legal agreement and getting a bit of a survey of the space to ensure that the space is accurately represented on a map with the square area.
Thank you. Next question is around rolling this out. Obviously, we've had some people that have had some version of this in the past, and they probably aren't too surprised by the new one. To me, it would be a good idea if we looked at perhaps zeroing the whole charge thing until we get our annual plan number sorted out. In the meantime, we get the other people acclimatised to the thing happening, measure our sites and get an understanding for what each person wants to pay for. And then obviously we can, as part of the annual plan process next year, come up with quantum, whether it's a city-wide square metre rate, which I'm probably favouring at the moment, or a zoned one that maybe is not quite as complicated. So
absolutely, yep, we can use our staff delegation to implement that. So at the moment there's a 100% discount from now until the 1st of January, and then from the 1st of January until the 30th of June there's an 80% discount, but at your direction we can use an existing staff delegation to change that 80% to 100%, which allows, like you say, some relief in terms of the financial impact of what we're doing, but it still allows us to move forward in terms of getting those agreements in place so that when you have the annual plan conversation and come up with plan B or whatever's next, we're ready to go to roll it out from 1 July. We don't run into the same issue we had this year where we weren't able to be ready by 1 July to actually have it ready to go. So that would be absolutely acceptable and a good plan.
I think it also gives the tenants the ability to understand exactly what they're going to be up for when the discussion's happening, and then they can submit to the annual plan if they have a problem with it.
Yeah,
So,
100%. The other good thing about continuing as currently planned is we want to have these businesses signed up so that we have the ability to control their LTO spaces. Because at the Mount, for example, at the moment we don't have that ability, and people can put a sign here or a chair there or a table, and we know there are accessibility issues with a relatively narrow footpath space at the Mount and people being able to get around. So rolling this out gives us that ability to start controlling that, and if you take the money issue out of it for an extended period of time while a further conversation happens, I think that'll make it land hopefully a bit easier.
You sort of preempted my next question, which was around precisely that, maintaining traffic flows for pedestrians and that sort of stuff. How are we going to actually enforce that going forward? Like often you'll go to the Mount and getting along the footpath's pretty difficult at times. Some of these tables are in the way.
So as part of this rollout, we'll be also looking at the option for stickers or such on the footpath to delineate the space to ensure that when setting up your tables, you're able to notice that, hey, look, this is my space. Also, it means that if we do end up needing enforcement to come out, it's very clear and obvious where it is. The licensed occupiers, I would just add, without the fee component, there is a benefit to though, and some of those businesses see benefit in being able to control that space a little bit more than currently. So once again, having those stickers out would be, or other such means of delineating the space from a council perspective, will ensure that is clear.
Just from a so the maximum width is obviously the footpath width is determined as part of the planning, and so that will obviously set the maximum that any business can go to, and then some may choose less, but should give us a fairly clear indication.
Yes, so the bylaw and the policy both set out clear pedestrian way widths, which are then accommodated within the licensed to occupy agreement.
Councillor Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Possibly a question to the Manager of Democracy and Governance Services. How do we? I personally support what Councillor Taylor has raised as a way forward. How do we capture that through this committee in an open and transparent way without exceeding our delegations, bearing in mind that Tauranga City Council staff have their own delegations? So how may we give some direction as this committee without breaching our delegation from council?
I think we go back to Gareth and say, sorry, my apologies. I was just going back to Gareth and saying you have a staff delegation to do that, right? So, and you're seeking some direction from this committee to do that today, at today's meeting. Yeah. Again, I'm just looking at Jeremy. But I would think if you give direction to staff for your delegation, then I think that's probably, what the staff is seeking without it being going over your delegations, as it were. But I'd have a conversation. Jeremy,
Perhaps notes, the committee notes or something?
Or provides,
So the basic delegation you've got in the terms of reference is to make all decisions necessary to fulfil the role, scope and responsibilities of the committee. So you've got the mandate to do this. Is about policy and bylaw work. It's about the implementation of that. It's about community and engagement with the community. It's bang in your wheelhouse. No. So simply you can make a resolution, or you could simply note, given there's already a staff delegation there and these guys have got pretty good listening ears, you could note it along the way that was the will of the committee, and staff would pick up on that and go off and do it. But if you want to be dead certain, you pass a resolution.
Okay. One more question.
May I?
Oh, sorry, Steve.
A supplementary statement.
Yes,
yeah, I think it would be good if there was a resolution noting something just for transparency. Someone can move it and second it. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Councillor Curry.
In respect of the pedestrian way, which will delineate between the dining and the pedestrian access, which is important, but also considering the wider public benefit of outdoor dining, providing vibrancy into these areas. I think we all enjoy strolling down the mountain, seeing people enjoying themselves in the various establishments there. And that needs to be factored into, I think, both the fees and the level of space that you provide. I know on the Strand there's actually physical separation barriers there, but we're talking about a much wider space than, say, that amount. So I think we need to consider more than just a guideline in terms of safe pedestrian. Sean, perhaps you can help here. Is there a national guideline in terms of providing a certain width of pedestrian way?
Yes, so the national standard for a footpath is 1.8 metres. Now we understand that Mount Main Street is a great example of it does get quite tight. So we have within that policy gone down to 1.5 metres. So that allows somebody in a wheelchair to or a mobility scooter to get through safely and without knocking over somebody's signs or somebody's beer on the side of a table. So we have squeezed that to a realistic bare minimum, which from a typical transportation standard perspective is a bare minimum footpath width. Yes.
Yeah, it has been. Good. No further questions. Thank you, gentlemen.
We've just drafted something to put up on the screen to
Yeah,
see what
if we just-
the committees would like to. Yeah. Sorry, that's the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
10 point-
to the license to occupy one.
It was the right
10.4.
words. It was the right words, just added to the wrong,
Yeah.
wrong resolution.
Wrong one.
Catastrophic.
That's just to receive the report. Yes. Unintended consequences.
That'd be well outside our. Right, this is it. Councillor Taylor, are you happy to move?
Yes. Do we need to add a bit more about the annual plan process, or is it just going to be taken as read?
And acknowledges that these
Any-
will be reviewed during the annual planning
Yeah,
process.
something like that would be great.
Or you could acknowledge that's going to happen, but the process is taken as read, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, taken as read, so,
I just don't want people to think that it's going to be zero going forward, because
okay, yeah, no, edit it.
So and acknowledges that this will be reviewed as part of the upcoming annual plan process or something like that.
with new fees
New
being
use
charged.
charges as part of the annual plan process.
26 year.
Process.
But these will be reviewed. These fees will be reviewed.
These fees.
These fees, maybe, and the word fees.
Happy to second. Yeah, happy to move. Thank you.
And the word fees.
Just adding one word, thank you, Councillor Morris, so make sure you.
Sorry, didn't hear that. Sorry.
Right, so ask for a mover. So mover, Councillor Taylor, and seconded Councillor Morris. Thank you, gentlemen. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just briefly. I think it sends a good message to people that we understand their pain at the moment, but it also indicates that we are serious about recovering funds and revenue from areas that essentially is public land that have been used for a private purpose. And I think as we go forward, including areas like Mount Maunganui, probably Greerton as well, it's going to be a good, fair way that we're operating in the city, and it's going to be reasonably transparent. So I think this is a good move and gives people a bit of time to get accustomed to what's going to happen.
Thank you. Any other comments or before we come to, or would you like to exercise your right now? Second, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Apologies, sir.
No, absolutely. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'll
Assuming
always
you
take it.
waive your rights.
I'll always take it. No, I'd never waive my rights. I want to thank the council staff team for bringing this paper to us for a look. I want to make it clear for those who are listening now and into the future that there will be no fees in Mount Maunganui until the democratically elected council has had chance to consider with them what those fees look like. And I think that's important. And also appreciate the acknowledgement that perhaps the Mount may have been a little bit left out of the loop in terms of the consultation and engagement and informing process with council, and look forward to us rectifying that. And I think there's maybe a desire for a fair and equal approach across the different suburbs around the city too, rather than singling out. So I want to acknowledge that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, correct.
And just adding to that, in the course of the process, that the elected members will take into account the benefit to the wider public in terms of adding that vibrancy to those Main Street experiences, which I think needs to be taken into account. Because we wouldn't want the fee set at a point where the businesses don't see it as being viable, because I think that would be unfortunate, because it would just detract from the benefits that the public get in those environments.
Thank you, Councillor Curator. Councillor Baker, so I'll just, from my point of view too, I think obviously thank you for the paper, and that we as a city we're looking for equity right across the city is also really, really important. So it's a good way forward, and I think as these motion as put does give us that chance now also to soften it, and like you say, in current times, but to engage fully with all the communities, and it does give the full council the opportunity to actually have a look and drill down a bit into the zones and the detail as we may see fit. So there's no further discussion. I'll ask Councillor Taylor to fine. Good. Put this to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the final item of business, 10.5, engagement on 5 playground and reserve enhancement projects. Welcome to the table.
So through you, Chair, if I can just go
yes,
short
Barbara.
introduction and then pass over to the team. So the purpose of this report really is to provide an outline of how we do our engagement when we're looking at upgrading our parks, our playgrounds. So I think you will be cognizant of the fact that over many years the renewals and enhancement of our playgrounds has deteriorated, and we've ramped that up over the past couple of years. So we've got Jenna here who handles our engagement from the Spaces and Places team, and she'll outline the process that we go through when we engage for upgrading parks. We are also cognizant of the fact that we're still waiting until the 29th of August to get confirmation that these will get through the budget, but worthwhile talking to you before that date. I also asked, Alison's asked Sonia to come along to answer some of the questions that I think may come out of this report, and not specifically focused on the engagement though. So I'll hand over to Jenna in the first instance.
Thank you. So yeah, we're excited to bring this report to you today that I guess outlines our proposed approach to how we go about engaging with our communities on our playground upgrades. So in the work plan this year we have Hopu Kiore, Mount Drury, Liston Park in Greerton, Beaumaris and Bethlehem, Emerald Shores and Papamoa, and Kirewiki Reserve in Pies Pa. So I'm happy to answer any questions around how we go about engaging, but I guess a big focus for us is making sure that our spaces are really reflective of the communities, are kind of what they want out of their play spaces. They're really important spaces for our community, and so we tailor our engagement approach to make sure that we can get that information and feed that back to the team, so we deliver something that's really fit for purpose. I understand there might be some questions around how we've chosen those playgrounds, which is why Sonia is here to answer those ones. So yeah, just a short intro from me.
Thank you. You ready to take questions?
Yes.
Just first from me, is this engagement style, or is it new, or is it what's been ongoing for a number of years? Or I've had a good read. It looks great. Yeah.
I can probably answer. For Jenna, it's probably not new. I think for the organisation it is new, but it's definitely an approach that, since Alison's taken on as manager and engaged Jenna and the wider team, it's something that's quite normal, and it depends on the size of the playground. Happy for you to correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the really small ones we just go door knocking to make sure that people within that area understand and have an opportunity to feedback on what they'd like to see within a budget, of course. I mean, there's always more wants than we can afford, but we make that very clear, I think, Jenna, in that consultation.
Yeah, I think it's really important to balance that community expectation with what we can deliver. So I think we plan this really carefully to make sure that we're really setting those parameters really early on. Playgrounds also heavily involve children, so we need to find tangible ways that we can get them engaged and involved. And this approach we feel really engages them, but not only in the equipment and what it looks like, but actually that connection with place and learning the history of the whenua and the land. So trying to do ways in which, if you ask any kid what they want, they probably will just say from the history, we want to swing, we want to slide, but how can we take that and really meaningfully represent that in the design and what we deliver?
Councillor Kura?
So in terms of dollars, in respect of those design aspects, are we talking about a major increase in cost to identify issues around there that could be personalised in terms of every part delivered? Or are we talking about fairly minor little tweaks to make it fit in terms of the different areas?
So the budgets that have been set for these 4 play spaces have been set to create the place for play, but also community, nature and culture and storytelling. They're kind of the 4 levers. There's not a specific, figure allocated particularly for the children to get involved and provide that kind of storytelling element. But we have provided a bigger budget than just simply replacing like with like play equipment to be able to actually deliver those reserves that meet the needs of the community more than just being the swing set and the slide.
So, just replacing like for like versus what you're proposing, what we're talking about in terms of percentage cost, it would be 100% more or 200% more?
Okay. So with so these budgets that have been set for these play spaces are between 300 and 375,000 for the 4 local play spaces, and if we, with the way the asset management happens, if we just replace like for like play equipment as each individual play element at the playground comes up to the end of its life, you might be looking, it depends how much that individual piece of play equipment costs. It might be 10,000, it might be 50,000, it might be, it depends what the element is. So we've bundled them all together and we could go away and provide look at what the like for like would cost to replace just the equipment versus the budgets. I haven't got that to hand today, but we can provide that if you'd like it.
I think actually that would be helpful in terms of Barbara, you can probably...
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think Alison could help with the details. So the total quantum of what we're looking for was in those spreadsheets that we got on the 9th. Yeah. So I think that Alison could perhaps help how we actually identify the difference between a local playground and a destination playground, and then give some parameters around how you work that, the budget, what the budget should be.
Around that level of service,
yeah.
Do we go down the track?
Yep. Without going.
Enhancement.
You might push the button. Yeah. It might or might not work.
And I can't necessarily answer in dollar terms specifically, but I guess just to build on what Sonia's said, so like for like, and for an example, we can come back to you with specifics, but for example, for a neighbourhood park, it may be that $250,000 is equipment and $120,000 is additional shade, making sure that we've got the accessibility right via entry into the park and a particular accessible piece of equipment. And if there's any other ancillary amenity that we need to put around the park to make it work for how we know that what that community is looking for. So we could come back with what the ratio looks like, but we've gone away from replacing like for like based on just renewal because our community's growing and changing and we're understanding more about what people are wanting for, and we're all becoming a lot more cognizant of accessibility and inclusion and spaces for girls and all those types of things. So that's why our budget program has been made broader so that we're delivering what we need to for our community as it grows and we understand more about what they're wanting to use.
Yeah, just on the engagement part, do we, and probably into the weeds a little bit here, but are we looking at, say with the 5 locations holding a barbecue day and just inviting whānau and kids to come down and engage in that space in a real community-centric kind of way, or is it purely door knocking and sending out letters and stuff?
For Hopi Kia and Mount Drury, absolutely. I think it's really important to get people into the spaces, and you actually get some really good information when people are in it and experiencing it. So absolutely. Our proposed approach for the 4 playgrounds, we have online surveys and of that 500 metre radius, just to make sure that we're getting all the adjacent residents and a really good feel of the people around those areas. We'll also be pulling the information from any wider scale engagement that we've done. We kind of don't want to go back and ask the community again and again on things that we've already asked them. But yes, absolutely. And then holding drop-in days or sessions with ideally with a barbecue, but we'll see how that looks. And getting people in. So yes.
And on that too, I'm just reading it's paragraph 8 there, where you talk about the 4 neighbourhood reserves. And so is that just starting with a blank canvas and they come to the ideas and we put it together, or actually you've clearly got a plan in place that you suggest and work from?
So for 2 of them, because they're new spaces, that we'll kind of engage probably more broadly.
Yes.
We'll be, again, this is that sort of parameters of budget and scope and what we can deliver. So the idea was to present some really base scale concept designs after engagement with mana whenua around what that could look like and how we can use those spaces. The other 2, which are more sort of the renewals plus, there's kind of again parameters around what we can and can't do to maximise the use of that. So we will sort of come with a few concept ideas just to provide that sort of scope of what we're after. But there is tangible and authentic ways in which people can impact what we actually deliver, which is why we're engaging in the way that we are.
Oh yeah, and I can see young children, getting a chance to get involved artistically, whatever, through their schools. I mean, you can get a real positive spin and massive support before you start. So that's great, thank you. Councillor Taylor.
So, just taking a quick step back one, how do we determine which ones we are actually looking at as far as the area goes? I've got my friend's ward doesn't appear to be on this list, and I would have thought...
Bloody hell.
So just out of
I've got something
interest.
on here now, and Sonia talks to it.
I can take you to paragraph 14 on page 137.
Thanks, Kev.
No, but that'll answer for you.
I'd like to hear it first.
It's always risky when you hand something out, people read it before
What we've done, we've got about 100, just over 120 playgrounds across the city, so it's obviously quite a lot to keep on top of. And so when we are looking at the prioritisation of where to start, lots of the playgrounds or components of individual playgrounds are coming up for renewal over this LTP period. And so we have taken a pretty good look across, starting with the playground safety condition assessments. Every year a playground safety audit gets done of the playgrounds, and they get a condition rating grade of the various components of how long, how many years life they might have left. That gets redone every year, so that's quite a live document, because we can, make pieces of equipment last longer, and then sometimes they might fail a bit sooner than anticipated. So we look at, in terms of the prioritisation, we look at the condition of the play equipment, particularly from a safety perspective, the age of the play equipment. So some play equipment, some of that classic metal, sets, they can last and last and last, and so some playgrounds can get left behind just because we can make that asset last longer and longer and longer. So we take into account the age of the play equipment. We look at gaps in provision across the city. So our level of service is that we provide a playground within 500 metres radial distance of most residences. So we've got some mapping that we can see areas of the city that are red where they're outside those 500 metre buffers. So we're looking to plug those gaps. So 2 of the Kirawehi Reserve and Emerald Shores Reserve are 2 of those reserves this year. We think about what we have heard already from the community from previous engagements. the site readiness for development, and also we think about geographic distribution. So we think about what's been already undertaken across the reserves network in the last couple of years, what's coming up, and we do take a bit of a mind to spread our investment across the city. So we know that Matua Park in Matua has a new playground there has recently opened. We've got work at Waitaha Reserve is underway at the moment. There were a few playgrounds in Welcome Bay that got an upgrade last year through we looked across Welcome Bay and did a park improvement project. Isla Park in Ohaiti was upgraded in 2023, Pacific Park in Arataki was in 2022. So we kind of know that those communities have all had a little bit of love recently, and so this year we've intentionally looked both geographically at playgrounds that need an upgrade. Liston Park's one of our oldest parks. I think some of the equipment's from 1980, and looking at filling some gaps as well. And so we will need to take the same view going forward, and there'll be an opportunity, I guess. So the same process we'll need to go through annually as we get the condition assessments and update the thinking and what the plan needs to be for subsequent years going forward. But this, I guess, felt like from our assessment, felt like a sound approach for this year.
Thank you very much. It looks like it's well considered and obviously come up with the right result. If you've got budget constraints and a limit on what you can do, how do you work out the difference between a playground that maybe needs some maintenance that's urgent versus maybe doing something that's new?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we have got our operations team have a renewal budget which they use to keep things safe and operational, and then we will need to make a choice for some parks whether we choose to do what we've talked about in the report here, is where we look at the reserve as a whole and go, rather than just being a green space with a playground on it, how can we actually make this reserve function better for our community and meet their current needs, versus just replacing that piece of equipment that might fail and needs replacing. So that just comes into our assessment. Again, looking geographically, what else is in that wider community area, and we do have to prioritise within the budgets. I mean, I think, I'll stop there.
No, that's good. Just for myself, I suppose is the other. Have you considered, if there were constraints imposed, that you do 4 a year instead of 5, so you can still deliver the actual vision you're after, but just on a slightly less scale each year, and then when budget constraints are less, you can do 6.
I guess the risk that we run into with that is some equipment does need replacing, and so you look, by replacing just one item at a time, you kind of lose that opportunity to look at the reserve as a whole. So if we can take this more forward planned approach where we know what's kind of coming in future years and go, is 4, 5 or 6 the magic number, already we have, I guess you could have added many more playgrounds to the list to do this year.
Yeah. 20.
If I could just add to that, of course, affordability is going to be something that we're all looking at, and we will work within that.
Yep.
I guess the point we can't forget is that it has been many years since a lot of these playgrounds have been updated, and when times get tough, money's come out of the community facilities. So I guess as a team, pretty passionate about ensuring that the community gets those things that the community wants. In saying that, we'll all work within the budget that we need to work within.
Thank you. If we name one Kurak Park, we might get support.
We're always up for taking donations towards naming rights.
Thank you. I believe one further, the last question, Councillor Lawrence.
I know the exact park too that I'd like to name after Councillor Kerrick one day. Unfortunately, there's a certain event that has to happen to be eligible for policy, but I won't talk about that. Not ready for that.
Nor am I.
Just noticing that little gap around Simpson Reserve there. It's all right. Just
just want to put you on notice that I noticed. A perennial question that's going to come up from me is around the piece of land between Te Okoroa Drive and Union Drive. We've talked about it, yeah. How are discussions with Blue Haven progressing on that fantastically sized site out
Lucky
there?
Ellison's been close to that.
Yep, so we're just keeping ongoing conversations there. Absolutely hear that it's a priority for the community. There's been, I guess, some different views around what we think should be there around our levels of service and what the community needs versus what Blue Haven might want to do for their delivery. So we're just reconnecting on that and looking at how we can push that forward to make it happen.
Supplementary?
Yes.
I'm right down to the weeds, Councillor Baker here. I'm looking at the earthworms. Any time frames that you can share, or is that's just in the conversation stage? Because it's going to be perennial. That's all. I'm going to ask the question.
It's definitely a conversation stage. I do have a list of things that are topical for councillors, so it's at the top. So we won't be let it drop off. Yeah, we're definitely aware that we need to keep pushing it forward. Yeah.
Perhaps you could pass the bylaw that you can ask that question automatically every year.
Just a note it to the anniversary.
Councillor Baker.
Kia ora tātou. Permission to just kind of yarn, because I think I've got a few questions as they go, and
you'll be last.
Yeah, so I'm conscious of time, and I'll try not to keep everyone here too long. And I just firstly want to acknowledge the work that the wider team with under you, Barbara, and previously Gareth, have done to really invest in our community in this way. Maybe I'm biased because I've got little kids, but when the dust settles from big events and stuff like that, what's left for our community is what's out in our community, and a critical part of those things are things like playgrounds. And so I'm a big fan of places like this because 365, it's our people that live here. So I don't want anyone to get it twisted that I'm anti-playgrounds, because I'm not. I think I'm probably one of the biggest kids myself, but I'm just kind of not entirely convinced, if I can be honest, that we've got the thinking right around the places that we've designated. And so I kind of want to know, partly, and part of the my thinking behind that, and I not wanting to discredit the work that you guys have done and the ridiculous, the awesome amount of playgrounds that we do have and the budget constraints and things. But a part of our role as governors is to look at the whole pie, and the whole pie being Tauranga. And I sit here, with all that hautapu is, and where these playgrounds are kind of dotted, and can't help but think there's a huge equity and equality issue with where we've chosen to explore where these playgrounds should go. And when I say the whole pie, I don't mean just in isolation of a playground in Papamoa or a playground in the Mount, but I'm talking about amenities, infrastructure that goes into a Papamoa or into a Mount or into a Bethlehem, and can't help but think that there are some really overlooked communities that we're not considering to prioritise compared to others. And that's not to say that these places don't deserve a playground, but I look at Papamoa, they get flash new roads, they get fibre built in straight away, like they get all these really nice bits and pieces, but places like Judea, places like Haukore, what else have I got in my places like Waimapu, Upper Ohauiti, Poike, aren't even in the picture in the next couple of years, and I can't help but think that we've completely overlooked some of the communities that don't get the same amount of love holistically from this organisation compared to other places. So we look at the Mount, for example, 365, they get complete and utter walking access, barring accessibility issues, to one of the greatest assets the city has to offer, right? That being Mowal and then the beaches. They've also got the coolest skate park in New Zealand, I reckon, and probably goes toe-to-toe with any in Australasia. As well as the ease of access to cafes, to public amenities, all that kind of sort of stuff. So this is where my thinking's at. And then we go in and we're going to put a brand new flash destination playground, or some kind of nice playground, when they've got a really good functioning playground already there that's well used and well loved with accessibility toilets. But haukore, has had nothing for a very long time. Judia has had nothing for a very long time. And sure, they might be in this 10-year plan somewhere that I haven't seen or haven't been given access to. But I would really like for us to probably consider or reconsider, if it's possible, where we've located some of these locations, or convince me otherwise that the rationale is like you've weighed it up against places like this and holistically looked at what this council has invested into these communities as a whole, not just with playgrounds, compared to others, because I struggle with all that hautapu is, without bringing obvious words out, that there's a huge equity and equality issue here for me, and I struggle to move past that, considering everything that I'd said at the beginning around, you know, how critical places like this are for creating community. So sorry to kind of waffle. I hope that kind of all makes sense, and I don't expect that answer to solely sit with you two at the table, because it's a much broader Tauranga City Council conversation as a whole. But yeah, at the moment I kind of struggle to want to progress or support moving forward until some of that thinking's really presented to me and I can cop that. Just young.
Sure, and it's awesome to hear that really holistic view, and I think that's something that we're really passionate about as well. Just to touch on a couple of your points, and around, I guess, what is at the mount with the skate park and the path and all those things. I guess there's that difference. It's as a tourist destination and for visitors as well. So that hasn't necessarily impacted on the way that we plan things out, but there are different things that different parts of our city obviously provide for the community as well, because obviously having good visitor attractions is a benefit for the city as well. On saying that, absolutely hear what you're saying about equity around the city, and some of that is wider than what we do within spaces and places, but also we should be cognizant of all those equity things across the city. When we look at playgrounds per se, it is around that 500 metre radius for people. So we have got heat maps that show where those gaps are. I've got it very small, but for example, this is Papamoa, and the pink is all the gaps that we should be putting something in to meet our current level of service. So we've got all of those things across the city that we could share if we wanted to, if you needed to. There's a few here, so we've just pulled out some that show where the gaps are. And so that's how we've fundamentally worked alongside all the other things that Sonia has said about how we do our prioritisation. I had something else I was going to say, but now I can't remember what it is. Sorry.
You're right. Just anyone.
So I guess from our point of view, as far as what you were saying around whether we hold and re-look at it, going back to what Sonia was saying around things needing to be renewed because at their end of the life, some of those are at that stage, and we are confident that there is a gap in the provision and the ones that we're wanting to do this time. If we delay now, essentially we would end up with not being able to do anything this year. We just wouldn't be able to, and then we'd run the risk of some of our assets getting to the end of their life. On saying that, we would really welcome the opportunity to talk further with this committee or council or whatever that direction is around further prioritisation. So with respect, I guess my suggestion would be that if we get on with what we're doing with these 5, because we have built a lot of rationale and planning behind that, but we would welcome the opportunity to be able to come back and look at what that future prioritisation looks like and what's in the mix over the next few years, and how we can make sure that we are prioritising what this council would like to see across the city.
That's one thing I was actually thinking myself in terms of that broader, because it is a bit of a broader discussion that you brought beyond just the parks and recreation areas. So is that the sort of bringing in an equity element to the planning process or the selection process?
Absolutely. Sorry, and I have a more, Steve. Sorry.
I could hear the
But yeah, no, please, I get that, and I don't want our city as a whole to lose out on the opportunity if we were to delay. So I accept your cordial there. But definitely moving forward, if we're planning on upgrading or doing 3 or 4 or 5 new playgrounds, or fixing old playgrounds, definitely keen to be involved in that, or to ensure that there's equity rationale matrix included in that. Just so our whole city's equitably getting the aroha that it deserves. Yes, sorry.
I was just going to add to that is that I don't think it needs, up to you of course, I don't think it needs a resolution, but we can certainly take away an action that if you're happy that we go forward this year, because we're already running out of time. I mean, we're already 4 months into the year. If we can go forward and deliver on this, that over the next, between now and Christmas or early next year, we can sit down, have a workshop and work through the methodology so that your annual plan for next year might not change the dollar value, but might change the direction. So I'll certainly take an action away to do that.
Appreciate that, thank you. Yeah. And last question is, what do we do with the excess material from these older playgrounds?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm keen.
Can I just add one thing, sorry, to the previous corridor? So some of the gaps that you identified there, totally from our desktop analysis, we've identified gaps in the same area, so it'd be really cool to come back with, and work through that. So in Hairene, we've got Hokori Street reserves scheduled for next financial year under the current draft program. And in our in our forward planning work, we've got investigations looking at where we could put kind of what I can call a major neighbourhood play space, kind of a Isla Park scale or skate facilities or something. We know there's a gap in the Greerton area for those type of activities. Similarly, Brookfield, we get lots of CCMs around Lees Park, so we're looking at so that's in year 3 in the draft program at the moment, but we're just looking at, is Lees Park the right place to do this? It's on that very busy intersection. Is there potentially a better solution for that community somewhere? So we're investigating that at the moment. Hear your thoughts completely and can bring that to Barbara's conversation. That didn't answer your question about the play equipment, though, sorry.
Usually if it's being removed, it's because it's at its end of life, and we, I guess all my time with parks and playgrounds, we often get asked if we can reuse it or gift it somewhere else, and if we're pulling it out, it's usually at its end of its life. If it's not, we will look to see whether we can reuse it somewhere else. And anything that is at the end of its life and can't be reused, we will recycle what we can and send to scrap and all those things. So it is used as much as it can be, but generally there's not much afterlife for it.
Sorry, and final question, because I think we were going to find an answer potentially, Barbara, was for the waterfront playground. Where did that go?
What can be used is going in at Newton Park, so we're storing it up. At the cemetery at the moment, actually, but it'll go into Yeton when we can do it. There are only a few elements that could be reused, but what can be is we're using.
Okay, thank you. Good. Conscious of time, last one, Councillor Kura.
In terms of the wider city network playgrounds or wider offer, not just the council facilities, but they're like school playgrounds, are they sort of taken into account when you look at this level of service in various areas?
So we don't count them as part of our level of service. Historically we had a few community share arrangements with some of the primary schools, but those aren't in existence anymore. But when we're kind of looking at the gaps, looking at what else is existing that's accessible to the community can help with that prioritisation. If there's a gap area here we know that this community is accessing a school playground, and a gap area here where we know they're not, then that would suggest to me that maybe this area should be prioritised.
Thank you very much. No further questions? Thank you very much for the presentation. I now call for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Kurat moves and seconded by Councillor Taylor. Mover, you'd like to speak? No? Seconder? No? Any discussion or debate? No? All right, that being the case, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Now come to the end of today's business. Thank you everyone for your participation. There's no late items as previously mentioned, so just ask Hautapu if you could give us a closing karakia.
Awesome, kia ora tātou. Appreciate today's meeting, some of the complexities that were involved and how we were to laugh all the way through. It's a great meeting in my opinion. Nō reira, kia tārewa tūnga ki te kōrero ki te rangi koia tēnei te whakawātea ki nei tūturu whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e hui e, tāi ki e. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you. Meeting is closed, 12:58.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Can we have a quick pass much? Jessica?
Shall we just wait until everyone?
Yeah, we'll wait till we've closed off. Thank you, everyone.